Chapter 479. So many people are fighting for it, but Princess Yu is determined to get it. As the sound of Shang Yu's voice faded, the entire space fell silent. Everyone was staring at the spatial brush in the hands of the old man. The mandate of space had always been a type of extremely powerful energy. Not only that, if one's cultivation was high enough, they would even be able to perform spatial teleportation. This spatial brush contained the mandate of space, and could be used by experts who cultivated the mandate of space to increase their attacking prowess. However, it had another terrifying use. If this spatial brush was obtained by a grandmaster who could inscribe spatial displacement divine inscriptions, they would be able to use it to inscribe divine inscription scrolls. At critical moments, it could be used to save one's life, just like the treasure Qin Zheng had back then. Hence, the appearance of the spatial brush caused many experts to vie for it. Yin Cheng, Princess Yu, and the rest all came from powerful powers. Naturally, they would be able to find a powerful grandmaster. Hence, the significance of this spatial brush to them was extraordinary. In the future, they would be able to inscribe divine inscription scrolls endlessly, and they could even sell it to others to earn more resources. This spatial brush is of little value to many. But to those who can find a grandmaster to help them, it's a treasure. The hearts of the spectators mused. Naturally, if it was obtained by a grandmaster who could inscribe divine inscriptions, the value of this spatial brush would definitely be different. Qin Wentian was precisely the type of person they were thinking of. Closing his eyes, Qin Wentian sank into silence as he rummaged through his memories. An instant later, he found what he was looking for. It was recorded in an ancient scroll regarding how to inscribe divine inscription scrolls. However, the difficulty level was extremely high. The grandmaster who inscribed the spatial brush had to be proficient in the mandate of space. But now that he had this spatial brush, it would be much easier. When he thought of this, he opened his eyes again, and a sharp light flashed in them. Song Jia, help me buy some things that I need. Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to Song Jia, who was standing behind him. After which, he turned around and passed an interspatial ring to her. Song Jia's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. Hearing Qin Wentian's voice resounding in her mind, she silently cursed in her heart that this fellow was really treating her like a slave and ordering her around. However, she still nodded her head and left. She must have followed Qin Wentian's instructions and went to find the items that Qin Wentian needed. The trading area of the Heavenly Mountain Treasure Seizing Assembly was filled with mountains and ancient paths. At this moment, Yin Cheng smiled and spoke, "Since the princess wants this item, I naturally won't compete with you for it. I will withdraw." After Yin Cheng expressed his stance, the young man beside him also nodded and said, "If the princess is willing, then this item naturally belongs to the princess. I will also withdraw." Shang Yu was the princess of the King Manor. In addition to her outstanding talent, with a cultivation base at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, these people from the major powers might still compete with each other for this item. But for the princess, they wouldn't compete. Even if this item was extraordinary, if they competed, they would undoubtedly offend the princess of the King Manor. Not only that, the other major powers would definitely target them as well. Since the princess wants this brush, just take it out. The princess will naturally bestow the cultivation art to you. Yin Cheng stared at the black-robed old man as he spoke. "I need to ask the princess what cultivation art this is." The black-robed old man lowered his voice as he stared at Shang Yu. Shang Yu stared at him as her lips moved slightly. Her voice directly rang out in the ears of the black-robed old man. The old man's countenance didn't change as he replied in a low voice, "This cultivation art indeed satisfies this old man's requirements. In that case, let's trade." Shang Yu faintly spoke. "Wait a minute." At this moment, another voice drifted over. Among the crowd, there was another old man. This old man is also interested in this spatial brush. This old man was clad in a long green robe, appearing extremely casual. He exuded an extraordinary aura. Grandmaster Chiu. Shang Yu stared at the green-robed old man as a strange expression appeared on her face. This old man was a peak-tier 4th-ranked grandmaster with a cultivation base at the peak of the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. If he really wanted to compete with Shang Yu might not be able to win against him. Princess, this old man is indeed in need of this item. Grandmaster Chiu stared at Shang Yu as he indifferently stated. Grandmaster Chiu's attainments in divine inscriptions are extraordinary, I naturally know that. If I can obtain this brush, I will invite Grandmaster Chiu to my manor. How about it? The princess spoke to Grandmaster Chiu, implying that she would join forces with him to forge the brush. This caused Grandmaster Chiu's eyes to brighten as he smiled and clasped his hands. Since the princess is so kind, I will naturally withdraw. Many thanks, Grandmaster Chiu. Shang Yu lightly nodded, her countenance didn't fluctuate too much. Qin Wentian stared at Shang Yu, and upon seeing the calmness in her eyes, he silently mused that Shang Yu didn't really view Grandmaster Chiu as a worthy opponent. Hee, it seems like this brush belongs to the princess. Yin Cheng laughed. It was as though this spatial brush was already in Shang Yu's possession. Shang Yu's countenance was calm as she stared ahead. It was rare for her to encounter a treasure she wanted, there was naturally no one who would compete with her. I, Qin, also want this treasure. At this moment, a voice that shouldn't have appeared rang out, causing the gazes of the crowd to turn over in the direction of the voice. Once again, they saw the white-robed young man. The young man who claimed to be surnamed Qin was as calm as ever. He turned his gaze onto the black-robed old man. He actually wanted to compete with the princess for the spatial brush. Shang Yu frowned as a look of unhappiness flashed past her eyes. She glanced in the direction of Qin Wentian as she asked, "What cultivation art do you want to use to exchange for this treasure?" The black-robed old man similarly stared at Qin Wentian. If Qin Wentian wanted to trade for this treasure, he would first have to provide a cultivation art that the black-robed old man was satisfied with. Only then would he have the qualifications to compete. The Grand Shang Empire is located right next to Grand Xia. The ancient empire has 9 ultimate arts, including the Great Solar Universe art. If one cultivates it, one would be able to manifest the Great Solar Bloodline, causing one's body to be akin to magma. When the Great Solar Bloodline erupts forth, anyone who gets close to it would be incinerated. Is this cultivation art sufficient? Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to the black-robed old man. Momentarily, the eyes of the black-robed old man gleamed with sharpness. He naturally knew about Grand Xia, the cultivation art offered by this young man was actually one of the ultimate arts of Grand Xia. The value of this cultivation art was even greater compared to the cultivation art Shang Yu spoke of. It definitely surpassed the value of the spatial brush in his hands. However, when trading treasures, the most important thing was to obtain what each party needed. Qin Wentian didn't care about this cultivation art, and as for the spatial brush, it wouldn't be of much use to him. Hence, he was able to agree to the conditions of the transaction. However, the black-robed old man didn't dare to directly trade with Qin Wentian and reject Shang Yu's proposal. After all, he had already agreed earlier that Shang Yu's cultivation art was suitable for him. The eyes of the black-robed old man flickered as he spoke, this cultivation art is also suitable. As the sound of his voice faded, the gazes of the crowd froze. In that case, it meant that they were going to compete for the treasure. "Sir, can you give me some face?" At this moment, Yin Cheng stared at Qin Wentian as he spoke. His eyes flickered with a sinister light. It was rare for Princess Shang Yu to have a treasure that even he had to give up on. Yet this young man actually dared to compete for it. What does the treasure-seizing assembly have to do with face? Qin Wentian glanced at Yin Cheng as he casually spoke. Instantly, the sinister light in Yin Cheng's eyes flickered with unmasked coldness. This treasure isn't something you can obtain. Another person spoke. This person was from the heaven-shocking sword sect and was seated beside Yang Ting, who had just been defeated by Qin Wentian. Do you know that this pavilion isn't a place where just anyone can sit? We didn't make things difficult for you, but you better not know when to retreat. Another person from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan directly threatened. Since I'm here to seize the treasure, how can your threats scare me away? Qin Wentian snorted as he continued, if you guys want to decide who will be the one seizing the treasure, why do you need to invite others here to present their treasures? Since this is the treasure seizing assembly, everyone can seize the treasure. The crowd didn't expect Qin Wentian to be so unappreciative, not knowing when to retreat. The disciples from the major powers all had cold smiles on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian with pity. Could this young man be a newborn calf? How could he be so ignorant? Although it was true that everyone could seize the treasure in the treasure-seizing assembly, it also depended on who the person was. The treasure that the princess wanted was not something that he could covet. Indeed, everyone can seize the treasure in the treasure-seizing assembly. Shang Yu spoke after hearing Qin Wentian's words. Her gaze was fixed in Qin Wentian's direction as a sharp light flashed in her beautiful eyes. At this moment, her beautiful countenance was filled with a domineering sharpness, causing others to not dare to look directly at her. Princess, why don't you allow me to represent you in the treasure-seizing battle? If he is defeated by me, he wouldn't have the qualifications to fight against the princess. At this moment, another person spoke up, wanting to represent Shang Yu. Princess, your strength is stronger than mine. How about I represent you in this battle? What do you think? Someone from the Golden Fire aristocrat clan spoke. You guys discuss this clearly. I will only fight against one of you. Qin Wentian spoke, his words causing the gazes of the crowd to be filled with interest. Although this person's strength wasn't ordinary and was able to defeat Yang Ting with ease, Yang Ting's strength was probably the weakest among the geniuses here. Did he think that he had the qualifications to be arrogant just because he defeated Yang Ting? Shang Yu wasn't just born into a beautiful family. Her talent and strength were in no way inferior to her beauty. As for the young men around Shang Yu, they were all geniuses from the various major powers. What did Qin Wentian count for? What's your cultivation base like? Shang Yu stared at Qin Wentian as she asked. Third level of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian replied. I disdain to bully you. Shang Yu calmly replied after hearing his words. It wasn't that she looked down on Qin Wentian's strength, but rather, she was too clear about her own strength. She was the princess of a king manor, a member of the royal clan. She possessed the power of a bloodline, and the innate techniques she cultivated were all top-notch. Not only that, the mandates she comprehended were also extremely powerful. There were only a few people on the same level as her who could be compared to her. In terms of combat prowess, there were only a few who could be her match. Even defeating ordinary 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns was a piece of cake for her. Qin Wentian's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. She was confident that she could easily suppress him. You better give up on this treasure. Shang Yu pointed her finger at the spatial brush in the hands of the black-robed old man. She felt that it was beneath her to make a move against Qin Wentian. Hence, she once again advised Qin Wentian to give up on this treasure. Chapter 480. The surrounding spectators all had expressions of interest on their faces. This white-robed young man was truly an interesting character. The first time he appeared, he snatched Song Jia away, causing Yin Cheng to be somewhat unhappy. However, Song Jia was intentionally humiliated by Yin Cheng, treating her as an item to be traded. Although Yin Cheng was unhappy that Qin Wentian snatched her away, he wouldn't really do anything to him. However, things were different now. The treasure Shang Yu wanted, yet Qin Wentian actually dared to compete for it. Could it be that Qin Wentian didn't know that the appearance of Shang Yu here would cause these people from the various sects and clans to hate the fact that they didn't have a chance to display their strength? At this moment, Qin Wentian jumping out was akin to striking a stone with an egg. What confidence did he have to contend against Shang Yu? Qin Wentian's thoughts naturally weren't something they could understand. When adventuring in the outside world, how could one not offend experts? Qin Wentian had long made his preparations. Now that he had no more worries, what he needed now was to increase his trump cards and increase his survivability. The spatial brush before him could achieve his goal. How could Qin Wentian give it up? I, Qin Wentian, want this brush for sure. As the sound of Shang Yu's voice faded, Qin Wentian decisively replied. In an instant, the space in the surroundings froze as many people stood up. A gust of wind gusted over from the precipice, buffeting the bodies of the geniuses, causing the long robes of those in the pavilions to flutter. Their gazes were all fixated on Qin Wentian's location as a faint pressure gushed over to him. This brush, he wanted it for sure. What an arrogant tone. Shang Yu didn't want to bully him. To them, it was only natural. But what qualifications did Qin Wentian have to do so? Princess, let me retrieve the brush for you. Beside Shang Yu, a middle-aged man spoke in a low voice as he bowed to her. Since he was Shang Yu's subordinate, there was no difference between Shang Yu seizing the treasure and him seizing the treasure. At this moment, he was naturally willing to do it for her. If you make a move, what's the difference between it and me making a move? Others will say that there's no one in my mansion. Shang Yu coldly stated. Evidently, Qin Wentian's arrogant attitude caused her to be extremely unhappy. However, the middle-aged man beside her had a cultivation base at the peak of the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper and was one of her guards. She, Shang Yu, wanted a 5th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign to compete with a 3rd level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Wasn't this a joke? My cultivation base is at the 4th level of Yuanfu. None of the 4th level Yuanfu cultivators here would dare to say that they can defeat me. Shang Yu looked at Qin Wentian and said slowly, I've said it before, I don't want to bully you. But since you don't know what's good for you, then, who is willing to fight for me? After Shang Yu finished speaking, several figures flashed out and instantly descended in the central area. Those who came out were all geniuses at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. They stared at Shang Yu as they smiled, I'm willing to do it for you. As for Qin Wentian, they didn't care too much about him. Against Yang Ting, they could easily suppress him with no suspense. If not, they wouldn't have stepped out in the first place. Shang Yu's beautiful eyes stared at these silhouettes. Finally, her gaze landed on a young man. This young man had a golden flame insignia imprinted on his robes, indicating that he was a genius from the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan. His attacks were extremely tyrannical and ordinary 4th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't be his opponent. As for 3rd level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, they would die without a doubt if they were to be incinerated by his golden flames. Jin Zhan, bring me along. Shang Yu stared at the genius from the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan as she spoke. The corner of Jin Zhan's mouth curled up into a confident smile, as if he had already obtained victory. The others all retreated. Since the princess had already made her choice, there was nothing they could do. They could only allow Jin Zhan to benefit from it. If they fought for the princess, they would definitely win her favor. Jin Zhan's gaze slowly shifted over, landing on Qin Wentian. The smile on his face turned into one of mockery, filled with disdain. This person was truly courting death. Since this was the case, Qin Wentian would grant him his wish. Didn't you want to seize the treasure? Get the hell out here. Jin Zhan spat out. However, he only saw Qin Wentian casually glancing at him as he replied, wait a moment. Jin Zhan frowned as a mocking expression appeared on his face. You don't dare to fight. A moment is fine. Qin Wentian faintly spoke, yet his words caused a commotion in the crowd. Could it be that this white-robed young man was truly afraid to fight? I don't have the time to play with you. As the sound of Jin Zhan's voice rang out, the power of his bloodline gushed forth from his body. An intense heat flowed through his body. He stretched out his hand, and a ball of golden flames appeared in his palm. Instantly, the surrounding space seemed to distort under the heat of the golden flames, fluctuating erratically. Jin Zhan stepped out with a mocking smile on his face as he walked towards Qin Wentian's pavilion. Many people felt sympathy for Qin Wentian. In this battle, in order to please the princess, Jin Zhan wouldn't show any mercy to Qin Wentian. At this moment, Song Jia bypassed the crowd and arrived at the pavilion beside Qin Wentian. Upon seeing Jin Zhan walking over, her countenance couldn't help but stiffen. "Have you settled the matter?" Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see Jin Zhan as he asked Song Jia. The reason why he called for Song Jia to wait was because he knew that Song Jia had returned. I found quite a few." Song Jia passed the interspatial ring over to Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to smile and nod his head as he kept the interspatial ring. At the same time, he placed Little Rascal on Song Jia's back as he stated, "Bring this little rascal out for a stroll." However, at the same time, a voice rang out in Song Jia's ears, "After today, Yin Cheng will gradually forget about you. You should return to your clan. If you are really worried about Yin Cheng's revenge, you can just ask your clan to migrate. My pet will naturally escort you out of the city." Song Jia's countenance stiffened as her beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian. "Don't worry, given Little Rascal's speed, even a 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign might not be able to catch up to it." Qin Wentian continued. Song Jia bit her lips. She knew that Qin Wentian had offended Yin Cheng because he wanted to help her. "Why?" Song Jia asked in a low voice. "Why are you still not going?" Qin Wentian waved his palms as Song Jia felt an immense force pushing her body through the air. The snow-white puppy leapt onto her shoulder, and at the same time, she saw Qin Wentian taking out a flask of wine as he gulped down a mouthful. It was as though he was replying to her words. There was no other reason, it was all because of the wine in the cellar. It was only when Song Jia met up with her father and found her family members together that the steward of the Song family in Luoyang City found out that the white-clothed young man had taken away a cellar full of good wine that day, but he had brought back an unharmed Song Jia. Song Jia only felt that Little Rascal on her shoulder was actually dragging her along as it soared through the air. However, the person standing at the edge of the cliff didn't have the time to notice her. Because at this moment, Jin Zhan had already arrived not far away from Qin Wentian. The terrifying golden flames emanating from him were sufficient to incinerate a human into ashes. After Qin Wentian gulped down a mouthful of wine, he stood up and spat out a mouthful of it towards the golden flames. Momentarily, the golden flames of the wine collided with the golden flames, causing the flames to soar up into the skies. The crowd only saw a smile on the face of the white-robed young man. The wine gourd was still in his hands as he stepped out. With a single step, the heavens and earth seemed to sink as a terrifying killing intent gushed forth, causing the people in the air to clearly feel the heaviness of the atmosphere. However, the one who felt the pressure even heavier was none other than Jin Zhan. This step of Qin Wentian's was akin to the killing intent of the heavens and earth. It was as though a sword intent had penetrated through his body, gushing into his astral nova. Boom! The power of the golden fire bloodline erupted forth. Jin Zhan's entire body was bathed in flames, resembling a fiery god of war. His astral nova manifested, resembling a golden flame lotus. With a wave of his palms, numerous golden flames danced in the air as they shot towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stepped out, and as the second step landed, Jin Zhan groaned in agony. An even more powerful sword strike penetrated through his body, penetrating through his astral nova, causing cracks to appear on the surface of the golden flame lotus. Jin Zhan's countenance turned pale. The confidence and disdain on his face had completely vanished. In fact, there was even a hint of panic in his heart. No matter what, he, Jin Zhan, was a famous character in the Xian King city, a genius from the Golden Fire aristocrat clan. This battle was for the sake of the princess of the Xian King clan. If he failed, although the princess wouldn't say anything, she would definitely bear a grudge in her heart. Just these 2 steps had completely shattered his self-confidence, causing him to lose the will to win. Jin Zhan's astral nova erupted forth. Both of his palms folded incantations as he abruptly blasted out. Instantly, a powerful will of mandates gushed forth, causing the entire space to be ignited. The golden flame lotus was even sharper than swords and sabers, revolving rapidly as it flew towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's body seemed to be on the verge of being ignited. However, Qin Wentian's countenance didn't change at all. He took his 3rd step. 7 Annihilation Swordplay, 1 step, 1 kill, 1 thought, 1 kill. At the instant the 3rd strike landed, the golden flame lotus directly exploded in the air, transforming into resplendent sparks. On Qin Wentian's body, the will of the mandate of swords gushed forth from his king's sword astral nova, causing cracks to appear on Jin Zhan's astral nova as it was penetrated by the mandate of swords. Jin Zhan groaned in agony as blood seeped out from the corners of his mouth, his countenance turning pale. This mouthful of blood caused the gazes of countless people to stiffen, as expressions of shock and terror appeared on their faces as they stared at the white-robed young man. Jin Zhan was injured. The white-robed young man hadn't even made his move yet, he had only taken 3 steps forwards. 1 step, 1 kill, the might of each step was stronger than the one before. Far away in the air, Song Jia turned her head and stared in the direction of the white-robed young man. She could feel the sword intent emanating from that direction, and at the same time, saw Jin Zhan coughing out blood. Her heart violently pounded as her beautiful eyes turned sluggish as she stared at the white-robed young man. So it's him. Only now did Song Jia know that the person who sent Yin Cheng to capture her back then was none other than Qin Wentian. So it turned out that the white-robed young man who seemed to be incomparably powerful in her eyes had always been by her side. It was as though he didn't care about anything at all. The wind gusted by, fluttering Song Jia's long hair. She cast one last glance at the white-robed young man before turning away. A smile could be seen in her eyes, yet her eyes were slightly moist. Chapter 481. Song Jia departed, leaving with tears in her eyes. Although there were many injustices in the world, there were still some kind-hearted people. Nobody paid attention to Song Jia's departure. At this moment, the gazes of the crowd were all focused on Qin Wentian and Jin Zhan. As the white-robed young man took 3 steps forward, the pressure in the air was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. However, this wasn't sufficient to cause them to be startled. What shocked them was that when the 3rd step landed, Jin Zhan actually coughed out a mouthful of blood. The Golden Fire Aristocrat clan was one of the 3 great clans in Xian King City. Although Jin Zhan wasn't the most talented disciple in the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan, he could still be considered an extraordinary character with outstanding talent and combat prowess. How could ordinary 4th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns be his opponent, let alone 3rd-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns? However, Qin Wentian didn't even need to make a move to deal with him. Not only that, the aura radiating from Qin Wentian truly indicated that he was at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. Suppression, this wasn't a battle on the same level. Jin Zhan paled. At this moment, he had a feeling that the gazes of the entire world were on him, watching him being humiliated. Coughing out a mouthful of blood, Jin Zhan howled in rage, as though he was still unwilling to give up. But just as his aura surged forth, Qin Wentian's right foot stomped down once more. In that instant, Jin Zhan felt a boundless sword intent cascading down from the air above him. That formless sword intent transformed into a true killing intent that penetrated through his body, directly piercing into him. Chi. This time around, Jin Zhan's aura was completely shattered. He violently coughed out a mouthful of blood as the golden flames around him were completely shattered. Even his astral nova seemed to be on the verge of cracking. There's even the will of the mandate of sword infused within. How powerful! Jin Zhan's heart trembled. Right now, his aura fluctuated wildly as he found it hard to breathe. Qin Wentian was already not far away from him, yet Qin Wentian was still standing there as though nothing had happened, quietly staring at him. This caused Jin Zhan to feel an intense sense of humiliation. At this moment, a gust of wind gusted by. Jin Zhan only felt Qin Wentian's silhouette drifting past him, directly disregarding him. Qin Wentian stopped close to the black-robed old man and turned around to look at Shangyu. This treasure belongs to me now. Qin Wentian had won the battle for the treasure, so the space pen naturally belonged to Qin Wentian. The black-robed old man nodded his head slightly. He felt lucky that Qin Wentian had won the battle for the treasure. The cultivation technique that Qin Wentian had provided was even more tempting to him. However, he did not dare to offend Countess Shangyu, which was why he had no other choice. Wait. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, Yin Cheng interjected. He stared at Qin Wentian as a sinister light flashed in his eyes. This brat is truly treacherous. He actually concealed his cultivation base, saying that he's at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, using such a deceitful method to seize the treasure. I'm afraid this battle doesn't count. The eyes of the spectators lit up. Yin Cheng's personality was extremely crafty, and he loved to use schemes and plots. His words were undoubtedly a reminder to the crowd. That's right, this brat's cultivation base definitely isn't at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. To think that the princess would be deceived by him. This brat is so sinister, he deserves death. The various geniuses standing at the side of the cliff all spoke, berating Qin Wentian. From their words, it was as though Qin Wentian was an unpardonable sinner. Only death would suffice to vent their anger. Upon seeing such a scene, Qin Wentian didn't feel strange at all. He was as calm as ever. In the treasure-seizing assembly of the Heavenly Mountain, if one was willing to pay an equal price, the outcome would be decided by battle. The stronger one would obtain the treasure. Right now, although he had defeated Jin Zhan, it only meant that he was stronger than Jin Zhan. Yet these people still believed that with their strength, they could easily crush him, Qin Wentian. Hence, how could he be willing to disappoint the princess? No matter what, he wouldn't allow Qin Wentian to obtain the treasure so easily. Yes, your mandate of swords is so powerful, you must have concealed your cultivation base. Jin Zhan seemed to have found a straw to clutch at. He turned his head, his eyes gleaming with sharpness as he stared at Qin Wentian. So what if I concealed my cultivation base? Who was the victor in the treasure-seizing battle? Qin Wentian didn't deny it. He swept his gaze over to the crowd as he faintly spoke. Hee. Yin Cheng's lips curled into a cold smile. Seems like you have admitted it yourself. Since this is the case, the princess must have been deceived by you. That's why she sent Jin Zhan to fight in her stead. If not, given the princess's strength, how could you contend against her? Is that so? Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Shangyu as he spoke. Qin, have already said that I will only fight a single battle. I will keep my word. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying sharpness gleamed in Qin Wentian's eyes, sweeping over the crowd as it pierced towards Yin Cheng. Yin Cheng's lips curled into a cold smile. He slammed his palm onto the chair he was sitting on and instantly, several silhouettes dashed out from his side, all of them lunging towards Qin Wentian. Seems like you don't place my words in your eyes at all. Qin Wentian icily spoke. As he spoke, a resplendent light erupted forth from the center of his brows. Yin Cheng, who was smiling, abruptly felt his mind shuddering violently. When he stared into Qin Wentian's eyes, he felt as though he had fallen into an endless abyss of darkness. It was as though countless demons were slaughtering their way into his mind. Do you want to die? A voice rang out in his mind, causing Yin Cheng to scream in agony. Those experts who were rushing towards Qin Wentian turned their heads only to see Yin Cheng clutching his head with both his hands, as though he was in extreme pain. He roared, "Come back. Those experts exchanged glances before turning their gazes onto Qin Wentian. One of the experts at the peak of the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper was still unwilling to give up. He stepped out, causing the earth to tremble. Bang! Astral light erupted as the stars shifted. The spectators only saw a beam of blood-red light flashing past. Qin Wentian returned to his original location, as though he had never moved at all. That expert who stepped towards Qin Wentian had fresh blood dripping from his throat. His hands clutched his throat as an expression of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. He died just like that. A light sound rang out as that expert collapsed onto the ground. The spectators in the surroundings all had looks of shock on their faces as they stared at the white-robed young man. This young man actually used a killing move. Not only that, his strength was so terrifying. Even 4th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns weren't his opponent. Even if Shang Yu was the one fighting, she wouldn't have the confidence to defeat this young man. Revealing your killing intent so many times, do you really think I, Qin, am easy to bully? Qin Wentian coldly snorted. Instantly, a terrifying sword pierced through Yin Cheng's head. Yin Cheng screamed in agony as he clutched his head with both his hands, as an expression of extreme agony appeared on his face, causing the spectators to be extremely shocked. What methods did this young man use exactly? Could it be that he was proficient in spiritual-type attacks? To think that he could actually cause Yin Cheng to be in such a miserable state. Yin Cheng's subordinates retreated to his side, yet their gazes were still fixed on Qin Wentian. Humph! Qin Wentian coldly snorted, sparing Yin Cheng. Only now did Yin Cheng regain his senses. That sinister countenance of his had already transformed into a sinister one as he stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian shifted his gaze over, staring at Shang Yu as he spoke, "Can't afford to lose." Shang Yu stared at the white-robed young man in front of her. At this moment, she naturally understood that she had misjudged him. If this young man didn't conceal his cultivation base, he would definitely be a terrifying demon-level character, comparable to the heaven chosen of the various great clans or sections. Although Yin Cheng's cultivation base was slightly lower, only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, his talent was already extremely high. After all, Yin Cheng was extremely young, yet when facing against this young man, he was easily killed. "Since I've lost, this treasure shall be yours." Shang Yu coldly spoke, her words causing the spectators to draw in a breath of cold air. Princess Shang Yu came to the Heavenly Mountain Treasure Seizing Assembly to compete against this white-robed young man, yet she actually lost. No matter how this battle progressed, the final victor belonged to the white-robed young man who had yet to display his outstanding talent in Xian King City. He appeared to be only around 25 years of age. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over, staring at the black-robed old man. He took out an ancient scroll and passed it over to the black-robed old man. "The cultivation art is recorded within, please take a look." The black-robed old man nodded and received the cultivation art. His will instantly sank into it, and an instant later, his eyes gleamed with sharpness as he passed the spatial brush to Qin Wentian. After which, his silhouette flickered as he directly departed this place. In the Heavenly Mountain Treasure Seizing Assembly, many of those who presented their treasures would appear with their faces covered. After obtaining the item they wanted, they would immediately flee to avoid any mishaps. After all, it wasn't uncommon for people to kill others for treasures. After Qin Wentian received the spatial brush, he directly kept it away. This caused Shang Yu to stare at him with a look of reluctance in her eyes. She then spoke again, "This spatial brush has already been obtained by you. Now, are you willing to transfer it to me? Whatever price you want, feel free to state it." The spectators were all taken aback. They didn't expect Princess Shang Yu to be so stubborn, still wanting to obtain the spatial brush. Even if Qin Wentian agreed to the exchange, he would definitely demand an exorbitant price. At the very least, the price would be higher than the cultivation art he took out. "Not exchanging." Qin Wentian straightforwardly replied, his words causing Shang Yu's countenance to stiffen. She then spoke again, "Why don't you reconsider? I, Qin, don't wish to waste my breath." Qin Wentian spoke. To him, the spatial brush was extremely useful. How could he exchange it with Shang Yu? Shang Yu, as the princess of the Xian King Manor, was an extremely rare beauty. In addition to her outstanding talent, who wouldn't show her some respect? There had never been anyone who rejected her in such a manner before. Biting her lips, Shang Yu stared at Qin Wentian as hatred filled her heart. This person really didn't know what was good for him. After Qin Wentian obtained the spatial brush, he didn't leave. Under the bewildered gazes of the spectators, he returned to the pavilion and casually sat there, as though nothing had happened at all. Or maybe, he didn't place the matter earlier in his heart. The coldness in Yin Cheng's eyes grew even more intense. In the depths of his eyes, killing intent could be seen flickering. Let's continue. Yin Cheng's state of mind was also extraordinary. At this moment, he was actually able to stabilize his state of mind. The Heavenly Mountain treasure seizing assembly had yet to end. The reason why Qin Wentian didn't leave was because he wanted to see if there were any other treasures he could obtain. After all, he had never thought that he would be able to obtain the spatial brush earlier. Grand Shang Empire had an abundance of resources, its level was even higher compared to Grand Xiao. The Heavenly Mountain Treasure Seizing Assembly was the largest trading event ever held in Xian King City. Maybe, there might even be some treasures he wanted. Chapter 482. In the following treasure seizing assembly, several other treasures appeared. However, none of them could move Qin Wentian's heart. Hence, he didn't participate in the contest. He wasn't acting on impulse. He would only fight for treasures if he truly needed them. The Heavenly Mountain Treasure Seizing Assembly is held once every 6 months and lasts for 7 consecutive days. I shall stay here for a few more days. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. After which, his silhouette flickered as he stepped into the crowd. Many people retreated, opening up a path for him. Yin Cheng stared at the departing back of Qin Wentian as a cold glint of light flashed in his eyes. He signaled to the guards beside him and immediately, 2 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns departed, as though they were in pursuit of Qin Wentian. Other than this, Qin Wentian could clearly sense that there were others staring at him. Most probably, although he had obtained the spatial brush, it still attracted the attention of others. Following the ancient pathway in the mountains, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he flew towards the depths of the Heavenly Mountain range. Behind him, there were several guards flying through the air, following closely behind him. However, Qin Wentian didn't seem to mind. Not long after, he found an extremely comfortable cave dwelling in the depths of the Heavenly Mountain range. Most probably, this cave was opened up by a stellar martial cultivator in the past. After entering, Qin Wentian wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, he was inscribing something on the ground. After a long time, he inclined his head and cast a glance outwards as a cold glint of light flickered in his eyes. How powerful was Qin Wentian's perception? He could naturally sense that other than the 2 guards following him, there were also a few others monitoring his movements. Among them, the most powerful one should be Grandmaster Qiu. This Grandmaster Qiu initially wanted to snatch the spatial brush, but because of Princess Shang Yu's words, he gave up. But most probably, he didn't expect that the spatial brush would eventually land in his hands, which was why he wanted to snatch it away. In addition, as the sky gradually darkened, more and more Wuxia flew into the mountains to find a place to rest. Obviously, they had the same idea as Qin Wentian. During the 7 days treasure seizing assembly, the people from the top powers would go to the place where the treasures were presented, while the others would also go to the stall set up by Wuxia to trade. Many cultivators wanted to find what they wanted, so naturally, they wouldn't leave so early. During these 7 days, it would always be very lively. If they missed this kind of treasure seizing assembly, they would have to wait for another half a year. On an ancient peak that was adjacent to Qin Wentian, Yin Chang's silhouette appeared there. His gaze was cold and sinister, and beside him, there were several guards standing there. Is he still in the cave? Yin Chang coldly asked. And, after entering, he hasn't left. It isn't just us. Grandmaster Chiu is also keeping an eye on him, most likely because of the spatial brush. The guard replied. For such a minor matter, I don't wish to alarm my clan. It's just that the strength of this person is still unknown. There's no need for you all to be anxious, Grandmaster Chiu will naturally probe for us. Yin Chang's eyes were ice-cold as he stared into the distance. Killing intent flickered in his eyes. That white-robed young man dared to humiliate him in front of so many people. No matter who he was, he had to kill him. Since Qin Wentian had decided to stay here, he naturally understood that there were hidden dangers lurking in the shadows. At this moment, he used his astral energy to illuminate the interior of the cave, sealing it. The perception of others wouldn't be able to enter, unless they directly broke through his astral energy barrier. Under the illumination of the astral energy, Qin Wentian took out several ancient scrolls. These ancient scrolls were all specially made for the purpose of inscribing divine inscriptions. These were precisely the items that Qin Wentian asked Song Jia to help him find. With an intention of his will, Qin Wentian took out a spatial brush and unfurled one of the ancient scrolls. After which, he infused astral energy into the spatial brush as he started to inscribe divine inscriptions on the scroll. However, after a long period of inscribing, the ancient scrolls turned into scrap metal and were tossed to the side by Qin Wentian. How could it be so easy to inscribe a spatial scroll? Even though he was proficient in the art of inscribing divine inscriptions, he still failed time and time again. Luckily, Song Jia was reliable and had helped him trade for quite a few ancient scrolls. This was the reason why he was able to keep on trying. Finally, after tens of failures, an ancient scroll that emanated an immense amount of spatial energy appeared before Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stood beside the ancient scroll, clutching the spatial brush in his hands as a smile flickered in his eyes. Although the great solar universe art is extremely valuable, I wouldn't lose anything by using it to trade. As for this spatial brush, leaving aside the fact that I can use it to inscribe life-saving treasures, even if I were to use it to trade, it would be sufficient to support my cultivation for a long period of time. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. It's just that right now, the distance I can inscribe divine inscriptions isn't too far. If I were to face enemies that are too strong, it would still be dangerous. Qin Wentian murmured in his heart, but he didn't dare to be careless. He kept the completed page of divine inscription and continued inscribing. The sky gradually brightened, and several silhouettes appeared in the mountain range, all of them preparing to head to the main peak to trade for treasures. However, Qin Wentian's cavern was still under surveillance. At this moment, a light sound rang out, as though something had shattered. Within the cavern, Qin Wentian sat cross-legged. Abruptly, his eyes snapped open as he stared into the distance, as a cold glint of light flickered in his eyes. Not far away from Qin Wentian's cavern, a silhouette floated in the air. This person was an old man, and his gaze was fixed on Qin Wentian's cavern as he smiled. "Little friend, do you mind coming out for a chat? Could it be that you don't know that it's rude to barge in when others are cultivating?" A voice drifted out from the cavern. The people in the surroundings all halted their steps as they stared at this scene with interest. The old man standing in the air was none other than a famous character in Xian King City. He was a peak-tier 4th-ranked Grandmaster, Grandmaster Chiu. Why was he here at this moment? However, there were also those who knew of what happened yesterday. Seems like this Grandmaster Chiu couldn't endure it any longer. He must have wanted the spatial brush badly, but he gave it up because of the princess's might. But now that the brush was in the hands of Qin Wentian, how could he be willing to give it up? I have something to discuss with little friend, I hope you don't mind. Grandmaster Chiu faintly spoke. After a moment of silence, a single word abruptly rang out, scram. Grandmaster Chio's countenance stiffened. Not only him, the people in the surroundings were all stunned when they heard the word scram. Who was this person in the cavern? How dare he tell Grandmaster Chio to scram? He. A cold light flickered in Grandmaster Chio's eyes. No matter what, he was a famous character, yet he was actually told to scram by a junior. Stepping out, Grandmaster Chio directly walked towards the cavern where Qin Wentian was at. He initially wanted to barter with Qin Wentian, but seeing how impolite Qin Wentian was, there was no need for him to waste any more time here. Instantly, Grandmaster Chio's steps landed outside the cavern where Qin Wentian was at. His perception swept out, probing the interior of the cavern. When he saw the divine inscriptions inscribed on the ground, a cold smile appeared on his face. Playing around with divine inscriptions in front of him. This person was truly too foolish. Stepping into the cavern with no hesitation, Grandmaster Chio slammed his palm downwards, directly blasting a certain location. Instantly, the runic inscriptions flashed as a lacerating force directly tore through the area. Grandmaster Chio advanced step by step, his feet trembling as he destroyed the runic inscriptions. His gaze was fixed on Qin Wentian as he spoke, "Junior, you are too arrogant. You want to trap this old man with just these runic inscriptions?" Qin Wentian stared at Grandmaster Chio as a sinister smile appeared on his face. This caused Grandmaster Chio to furrow his brows, only to see Qin Wentian stomping his foot on the ground. Instantly, the divine inscriptions that Grandmaster Chio had destroyed shattered layer by layer, directly dissipating into nothingness. After which, numerous divine inscriptions that had been concealed in the cavern suddenly erupted forth. Grandmaster Chio's countenance stiffened as he lowered his head and stared at the ground. These are overlapping divine inscriptions. You. Inclining his head, Grandmaster Chio stared at Qin Wentian. As he spoke, his body directly soared up into the air as he lifted his palms, aiming for the cavern above him. Do you think you can escape? Qin Wentian laughed. Stepping out, Boundless Sword Might soared up into the skies, instantly burying the entire cavern. This Grandmaster Chio was referred to as a Grandmaster by others. Qin Wentian could naturally guess that this Grandmaster Chio was proficient in divine inscriptions. Knowing that Grandmaster Chio was spying on him, how could he not take precautions? Right now, given Qin Wentian's attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions, it wasn't a problem for him to kill a 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. In fact, even if it was just based on combat prowess, Qin Wentian wouldn't even care about his opponent. In the blink of an eye, Grandmaster Chio disappeared forever. The crowd outside could only feel a monstrous amount of sword might permeating the atmosphere. Their perception was blocked outside. After that, there was no more movement. Grandmaster Chio didn't come out again. This caused discussions to break out. Grandmaster Chio had fallen. From afar, Yin Cheng's guards exchanged mutual glances as expressions of shock could be seen on their faces. No wonder this white-robed young man didn't hesitate to offend Princess Shang Yu to seize the spatial brush. He was actually proficient in the Tao of divine inscriptions and his attainments weren't any weaker compared to Grandmaster Chio. If not, how could Grandmaster Chio not return alive? Go back and report this. One of the guards spoke. After which, the person in front of him nodded as his silhouette flickered, soaring through the air. In the treasure-seizing assembly, on the cliff at the waist of the mountain where Qin Wentian was at yesterday, disciples from the various major powers arrived once again. Yin Cheng's countenance turned cold when he heard the voice transmission from the person beside him. It was actually a divine inscriptionist grandmaster. Not only Yin Cheng, Shang Yu also received the report from the person beside her. She naturally knew of Qin Wentian's intentions in seizing the spatial brush. Keep an eye on him, don't let him leave. Shang Yu and Yin Cheng both issued the same command. Momentarily, the silhouettes of several people flickered as they left the area, heading towards the cavern where Qin Wentian was at. Qin Wentian still hadn't left the cavern, he was still sitting cross-legged in cultivation. But at this moment, his brows were furrowed as he noticed that there were more and more people staring at him from the surrounding mountain peaks. How impudent! Qin Wentian murmured in a low voice. Being monitored by so many people naturally wouldn't be a good thing. Chapter 483. Qin Wentian walked out of the cavern, his gaze fixed on the mountain range as he emotionlessly stated, "I, Qin, am right here. If anyone wants to seize the treasures, feel free to come." His voice rumbled, echoing throughout the entire mountain range. Although those people heard Qin Wentian's voice, they didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Their master only told them to keep an eye on Qin Wentian, but didn't give the order to act. Unless Qin Wentian wanted to leave their sight, only then would they act to stop him. However, Qin Wentian clearly had no intentions of leaving. From afar, a furry snow-white puppy flew over, leaping into Qin Wentian's embrace. This puppy was none other than Little Rascal, who had returned after sending Song Jia away. Qin Wentian hugged Little Rascal in his arms as he stroked its head. After which, he slowly walked out, heading towards the transaction peak. However, this time around, he didn't head directly to the trading peak. Instead, he followed the mountain path, walking amidst the crowd, trying to see if he could find anything he wanted. Those who were keeping an eye on Qin Wentian were still around. Seeing Qin Wentian blending into the crowd, their eyes grew even tighter, as though they were worried that Qin Wentian would slip away. Little Rascal leapt out of Qin Wentian's embrace, and sprinted madly on the mountain path. After a short while, it arrived at a stall, and turned its head to look at Qin Wentian, as it let out a series of "ya-ya" sounds. Qin Wentian came over, and glanced at the blood-colored fruits on the stall. He then asked Little Rascal, "Do you want to eat some?" "Yeah." Little Rascal nodded. Qin Wentian laughed, "How do you want to trade these fruits?" "These are demonic spirit fruits, they can allow demonic beasts to mature faster. If you want all of them, I will only charge you 100 fourth-layer yuan meteor stones." The stall owner smiled as he looked at Qin Wentian, before shifting his gaze to Little Rascal, silently speculating about the weight of Little Rascal in Qin Wentian's heart. 30, Qin Wentian said flatly. "Little friend, these demon spirit fruits are extremely precious, especially for people who have demon pets." The stall owner said very seriously. However, Qin Wentian had already turned around and walked away. "Young friend, how about 80? Qin Wentian ignored it. The little fellow followed behind him, wagging its tail and looking a little pitiful, but Qin Wentian was indifferent. "I'll bear the pain and give 50 renminbi to my young friend." The boss gritted his teeth and seemed to have made up his mind. Although he had lost a lot, Qin Wentian still didn't turn back. "Little friend, you win," the stall owner said gloomily when he saw that Qin Wentian was about to leave. Qin Wentian turned around, only to see that Little Rascal's movements were even faster than his. In an instant, Little Rascal had already turned around and lunged towards the demon spirit fruits, devouring them all in one gulp. Upon seeing this scene, both Qin Wentian and the stall owner were stunned. After which, Qin Wentian took out some yuan meteor stones and passed them to the stall owner before carrying Little Rascal away. Seeing the intimate actions of the two, the stall owner couldn't help but curse in his heart. At this moment, he was sure that if he had called out the price of 80 RMB, the other party would definitely have turned back. However, Qin Wentian was also extremely gloomy. As they walked along the mountain path, Little Rascal actually didn't hold back at all. It wanted many things, and Qin Wentian could only follow behind it speechlessly as it paid the bill. Not even 2 hours had passed, and Little Rascal had already made him spend 400 yuan meteor stones. Even those who were monitoring Qin Wentian were speechless. This white-robed young man was actually so wealthy. Not only that, the amount of yuan meteor stones he spent was only on his demonic beast pet. Although the demonic beast pet looked extremely ordinary, the treasures it ate weren't shabby at all. Yet, Qin Wentian still managed to satisfy it completely. Wasn't this a little too extravagant? Qin Wentian was also sighing in his heart. This little rascal was so small in its original form, yet its appetite was so terrifying. And at this moment, little rascal started running again, causing Qin Wentian to roll his eyes. This time, little rascal came to a stall with spiritual herbs placed on display. The pure white herbs exuded a mystical aura, causing one's blood to flow freely. You want to eat it? Qin Wentian stared at little rascal as he asked. Ee. Little rascal shook its head, causing Qin Wentian to freeze. He then asked, "Is that for me?" "Yeah." Little rascal unceasingly nodded its head. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he replied, "At least you have some conscience. Little friend, this demonic beast pet of yours is truly mystical. It actually knows about the blood shadow herb. I'm sure little friend has the power of a bloodline, right?" The owner of the stall smiled as he looked at Qin Wentian. "This blood shadow herb exudes a blood-red glow, take a closer look." Qin Wentian took a closer look, and indeed, he could see traces of blood-red light flickering on the pure white herb, causing one to click their tongues in wonder. "Little friend, if you use your bloodline to battle, you would definitely exhaust the power of your bloodline. This herb is able to speed up the recovery of your bloodline, and it's extremely rare. I only managed to obtain 3 of these herbs by chance." The owner of the stall explained to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian glanced at little rascal. It seemed like this little fellow was truly powerful, to think that it actually had the ability to hunt for treasures. Qin Wentian didn't know that the reason why he was able to meet Emo Qingqing back then, was because of little rascal's unique ability that attracted Emo Qingqing's attention. "What is the price for this herb?" Qin Wentian inquired. "Little friend, do you have any divine weapons on you?" The owner of the stall turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian as he asked. "Yes." Qin Wentian nodded his head. He had quite a few divine weapons on him, and they were all plundered from the corpses of the experts who had fallen in his hands. Not only that, many of the divine weapons were extremely good. "I need a high-grade, 4th-ranked divine weapon." The eyes of the owner of the stall flickered. Although these 3 blood shadow herbs were extremely valuable, a high-grade, 4th-ranked divine weapon was even rarer. "I don't have one mid-grade, 4th-ranked divine weapon." Qin Wentian shook his head. Even if he had one, he wouldn't admit it. The owner of the stall stared at Qin Wentian as he stated, "I need 3 mid-grade, 4th-ranked blood shadow herbs, 1 for each stalk. I only have 2. If you want them, I'll give them to you immediately." Qin Wentian waved his palms as a long spear and an arm guard appeared. A complete set of divine weapons, capable of both offense and defense. The owner of the stall exuded a sharp aura as he stared at Qin Wentian. This person's judgment was truly sharp. He actually knew that Qin Wentian needed a long spear. "Fine." The owner of the stall was evidently moved as he agreed to the deal. Qin Wentian handed over the divine weapon, and with a wave of his hand, he kept the blood shadow herbs. "Sir." At this moment, a voice drifted over. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over, only to see a young man and woman walking over. The young man's gaze was fixed on Qin Wentian's hand, while the young woman seemed to be in a weakened state. "Can you give the blood shadow herbs to me? I'm willing to pay an equal price for them." The young man spoke to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian glanced at the young woman, the source of her weakness originated from her blood qi. Most probably, the blood shadow herbs would be able to help her recover. However, this item was extremely important to him as well. This was especially so after he activated his bloodline limit. "My apologies, I have a use for this item." Qin Wentian replied as he turned and walked away. The young man's gaze faltered as he stated, "Sir, I'm willing to pay an even higher price." "There's no need." Qin Wentian emotionlessly replied. "You The young man's countenance stiffened as he stared at the back view of Qin Wentian. However, he only heard the young woman speaking in a low voice, "Senior, forget it, it's not a big deal. I'll just recover slowly." Qin Wentian halted his steps as he turned around. With a wave of his hand, a blood shadow herb flew out and landed beside the young man and woman. Qin Wentian stated, "A mid-grade, 4th-rank divine weapon." "Right." The young man started, before nodding his head. With a wave of his hand, a divine weapon flew out towards Qin Wentian. "Many thanks, sir." "An equal exchange, there's no need to thank me." Qin Wentian kept the divine weapon as he turned and left. The young woman stared at Qin Wentian as she asked, "What's your name?" "We're strangers who met by chance, there's no need to ask so much." Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished. The young woman stared at his back as she commented, "This person is truly mysterious. I don't think he exchanged for a divine weapon." The young man shook his head, "Junior sister, you're too kind. Quickly consume this blood shadow herb." The woman nodded her head lightly and swallowed the blood shadow Ganoderma. Activating her bloodline power, the medicinal effects of the blood shadow Ganoderma permeated through her veins, causing her complexion to gradually turn rosy. The blood shadow Ganoderma was extremely beneficial to the recovery of bloodline power. That demonic beast is truly powerful. After the young woman's breathing stabilized, her eyes shone with a radiant light, as though she was a completely different person. She stared at the young man beside her as she asked, "Senior brother, will we be discovered by others?" "It's only a matter of time. Shall we investigate again?" the young man asked. At this moment, the young woman turned her gaze towards the horizon, only to see an expert flying over. Her beautiful eyes froze. Qin Wentian didn't lack divine weapons. The reason why he took out a stalk of blood shadow herb was very simple. That young woman's character wasn't bad. Qin Wentian could tell the cultivation base of others with a single glance. That young man and young woman might seem ordinary, but they were both extremely powerful, at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. Not only that, there was a surge of energy in the young woman's body. Given the temperament of many people, if he didn't agree to the exchange, they would definitely snatch the herb away by force. Because he found the young woman pleasing to the eye, Qin Wentian gave up a stalk of blood shadow herb. This was his temperament, he did whatever he wanted, disregarding the gains and losses. "Little rascal, you should be full now, right?" Qin Wentian pinched Little Rascal in his embrace. Little Rascal lay on Qin Wentian, squeaking noises could be heard as its stomach flipped over, seemingly satisfied. Staring at Little Rascal's expression, Qin Wentian was speechless. His silhouette flickered as he flew towards the pavilion at the waist of the mountain. However, before he arrived, he already saw many people staring up in the air. Over there, several experts were flying through the air, landing at the location where the treasure exchange was held. Not only him, the people on the mountain path were all staring in that direction. There were even some who exclaimed in shock. "That's Jin Yan, one of the most outstanding geniuses of the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan. His cultivation base is at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, and he's extremely powerful. Why is he here?" Someone sighed. "Jian Jingtian from the Heaven Shocking Sword sect has also arrived." Someone in the crowd stared at a young man with an ancient sword on his back. Not only that, the sounds of exclamations rose and fell unceasingly. At the same time, news from the location at the waist of the mountain gradually spread over. So it turned out that there was someone who discovered the entrance to a mysterious realm in the depths of the heavenly mountain range. Using this information, he came to the treasure exchange conference to exchange for a large amount of Yuan meteor stones. Not only that, those who wanted him to lead the way had to pay the price he offered. For a period of time, this caused quite a commotion, attracting the experts from the various major sects and clans to rush over. The heavenly mountain range was incomparably mysterious, spanning over 10,000 miles. There were many secret realms hidden within, and it was difficult to see the true appearance of them. Mysterious realms referred to newly discovered secret realms. Every time a mysterious realm appeared, it would cause quite a commotion. Usually speaking, there would always be treasures appearing. Chapter 484. This time around, cultivators from the Heavenly Mountain discovered the entrance to the Heavenly Secret Realm. They didn't dare to take the risk due to their lack of strength and decided to exchange it for a fortune. Hence, experts from the various major sects and clans were attracted here. On the cliff halfway up the mountain, dazzling figures appeared one after another, causing everyone to exclaim in admiration. If those who appeared on the cliff halfway up the mountain before were all geniuses, then those who appeared now were all geniuses, the most dazzling experts of the various major powers. Yin clan, Yin Cheng's elder brother Yin Ting arrived. Yin Ting and Yin Cheng were both demon-level geniuses. Yin Ting's cultivation base was stronger while Yin Cheng's cultivation speed was faster. Both of them had extraordinary statuses in the Yin clan. Jin Yan from the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan was the cousin of Jin Zhan. His combat prowess far surpassed Jin Zhan. Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan was equally famous as Jin Yan. Jian Jingtian, his swordsmanship was unparalleled and was known as the #1 genius swordsman of the Heaven-Shocking Sword sect. Other than them, those from the other major powers were also extremely dazzling. They didn't appear during the treasure-seizing assembly, but when the news of the Heavenly Mountain mysterious realm spread, none of them wanted to miss it. The Heavenly Mountain range was mysterious and unfathomable. In the Heavenly Mountain mysterious realm, great opportunities would appear. Jin Yan landed on the ground. His gaze landed on Jin Zhan as he asked, "I heard that you were injured by someone. Who was that person?" Jin Zhan lowered his head when he heard this. He replied in a low voice, "That person claimed to be surnamed Qin. I wonder what his name is." He was clad in white. "How's his cultivation base?" Jin Yan asked. He stared at Jin Zhan. He heard that this person's cultivation base was at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. However, he wanted to hear it from Jin Zhan personally. "It seems like he's at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper." Jin Zhan found it hard to speak. A person at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper didn't even need to make a move to suppress him with just a few steps. This battle was a stain on his reputation. "If he appears, inform me." Jin Yan faintly spoke, feeling a little disappointed in his heart. Jin Zhan was also one of the geniuses the Jin clan nurtured. Yet he was actually suppressed by someone at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. After this matter happened, Jin Zhan didn't dare to report it back to the Jin clan. At the same time, Yin Ting slowly walked to the front of Yin Cheng, his gaze fixated on Yin Cheng as he asked, "Just my will alone is enough to defeat you?" "Yes, that person's will is very strong. It directly charged into my mind." Yin Cheng also felt slightly ashamed as he nodded his head. Qin Wentian's attack was too bizarre. It ignored everything and directly launched a mental attack on him. "You should have ordered people to keep an eye on him, right?" Yin Ting clearly understood Yin Cheng very well. Yin Cheng nodded. "Not confident?" Yin Ting asked again. "That man is proficient in divine inscriptions. Before this, he used divine inscriptions to kill Grandmaster Qiu in the cavern. Right now, my subordinates are only keeping an eye on him and have yet to act recklessly." Yin Cheng replied. "You two, work together to take him down, then meet up with me." Yin Ting stared at the two people behind him as he spoke. The two of them turned their gazes onto Yin Cheng, only to see Yin Cheng instructing the person beside him. That person immediately brought Yin Ting and his companion away. After giving the order, everyone's gazes turned to the middle-aged man who discovered the mysterious realm. He had a pair of eagle eyes. "Since everyone is here, let's move out." At this moment, Shang Yu spoke. Everyone nodded their heads. Before this, they all chose to stay here because they all paid an equal price for this middle-aged man to lead the way. It was impossible for any of them to head out alone. Hence, they came to an agreement. The various powers would head to their respective clans or sects to inform others to come here. However, there was one thing they had to agree on. The cultivation bases of those who came here could only be at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. They all knew that after stepping into the mysterious realm, if there were any fortuitous encounters or good fortune, the various powers that seemed to be on friendly terms with each other might turn against each other and start a war. Hence, they had to establish a balance. They mustn't allow one party to suppress the other party's strength to a certain level. This would depend on the methods of the various powers. Naturally, they also understood that the stronger experts of the various powers would also be waiting outside the mysterious realm. If there were any uncontrollable situations or heaven-defying treasures appearing, they would send people out to report the situation. After which, the various powers would send even stronger experts to enter the mysterious realm. These were the rules set by the strongest powers in the Xian King city. As for the other powers, they didn't even have the qualifications to participate. The various powers would naturally send people to guard the entrance of the mysterious realm. Everyone, please. That eagle-eyed middle-aged man led the way, leading the way. The spectators from afar stared at him, yet none of them dared to get too close. They were all silently cursing at how tyrannical the various powers were. Every time a mysterious realm appeared, it would become a training ground for them. Ordinary people wouldn't even have a chance to participate. Qin Wentian stared at the sky. A vast amount of experts could be felt flying through the air. At the same time, he could faintly sense a few powerful auras boring down on him. There were a total of 6 of them, and all of them had a cultivation base at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. Using such a powerful formation to deal with him, they truly thought highly of him. Since a mysterious realm has appeared, how can I not enter? Qin Wentian smiled. After which, he turned and sped away, speeding towards a certain direction with extreme speed. The experts in the dark naturally sensed Qin Wentian's movements. Their silhouettes also increased in speed as they sped towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's speed grew faster and faster, leaping past the mountain peak as he sped towards the bottom of a cliff that was shrouded in mist. Humph! The 6 experts coldly laughed as they sped towards the bottom of the cliff. At this moment, they were no longer concealing their presence. Their auras were all exposed as they sped towards Qin Wentian. An instant later, Qin Wentian stood on top of a gigantic boulder. Both sides of him were surrounded by precipitous cliffs. The other 6 experts also sped over, surrounding him as their astral novas manifested. Qin Wentian only felt his body sinking. That immense pressure bore down on him, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. Boom! A figure soared through the air, walking towards Qin Wentian. This caused the blood in Qin Wentian's body to seethe intensely, as though it was about to break out of his body. Die! A terrifying sword floated above the head of a figure in the air. The light from the sword was so bright that people couldn't even open their eyes. These people all rushed over at the same time, instantly erupting forth with the will of their mandates. This caused Qin Wentian to sigh in admiration at how terrifying the combined attacks of stellar martial cultivators were. In a one-on-one battle, although the will of one's mandate was strong, one could still use corresponding methods to deal with it. But when so many people appeared at the same time, the might they could unleash in an instant was sufficient to crush an opponent. This was especially so when Qin Wentian's cultivation base wasn't high. A demonic beast armor covered Qin Wentian's body as the demonic bloodline in his veins seethed, causing him to resemble the sovereign of demons. That handsome young man in white abruptly transformed into a demonic beast, becoming extremely demonic. The demon sovereign astral soul appeared, instantly connecting with the heavenly dome. Astral light cascaded downwards as numerous terrifying demonic beasts manifested around Qin Wentian. These demonic beasts were all at the fourth level of Heavenly Dipper and exuded a fearsome might, protecting Qin Wentian in the center, helping him to endure the pressure brought forth by the will of the various mandates. Summon astral souls. The eyes of the experts all gleamed with sharpness as they stared at Qin Wentian. After which, one of them roared, "Do it." As the sound of his voice faded, the various experts directly rushed out, lunging towards Qin Wentian who was surrounded by them. Their wills of mandates were sufficient to crush ordinary fourth-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns to death. "All of you, stay behind." Qin Wentian stared at the experts rushing over. A cold light flashed in his eyes as a sword-type astral nova appeared. With a flick of his palm, that astral nova directly pierced into the gigantic boulder. In an instant, the boulder was reduced to dust as the sound of swords rang out in the air. Beams of sword light ravaged the entire space, causing the gazes of the experts to stiffen as they hurriedly unleashed their innate techniques to defend against the attack. However, how fast were their bodies? The distance between them and Qin Wentian was already very close. Qin Wentian's summoned demonic beasts directly lunged towards them. At the same time, his palms continuously blasted out in the air, causing the bell chimes and the sword chimes to echo out simultaneously. The sword chimes were filled with killing intent, while the bell chimes were filled with killing intent. This was none other than the Heartbreak Ancient Bell. The 6 experts all felt their hearts pounding violently, as though they were no longer in control. Boom! At the same time, Qin Wentian stepped out as he executed the 7 annihilation swordplay, killing with each step he took. The 6 experts clashed against the summoned demonic beasts. Their astral novas were all used to suppress the demonic beasts. The demonic beasts wouldn't be able to obstruct their advance. Die! Qin Wentian's palms continuously blasted out the Heartbreak Ancient Bell. Stepping out once more, an even more terrifying sword might gushed forth, causing the hearts of the 6 experts to palpitate violently. Qin Wentian brandished his astral nova and abruptly unsheathed it. He took a 3rd step forward as countless beams of sword light swept out. Bang! One of the summoned demonic beasts was slain by another expert. That expert stared at Qin Wentian as his killing intent surged forth. This young man actually gave them an intense sense of threat. However, at the same time, Qin Wentian took a 4th step. The boundless sword might transformed into a gigantic sword that slashed towards that expert. At the same time, a boundless sword intent cascaded downwards, seemingly under Qin Wentian's control. Each and every sword strike was filled with the intent to kill. This person held a large axe in his hand and chopped out, colliding with the huge sword. At the same time, both of them exploded. He felt the power wreaking havoc in his body and roared, "We can't let him continue accumulating power." PFFF, PFFF. Demonic beasts fell one after another. Qin Wentian's body slowly rose up and took the 5th step. When his step landed, the entire space had already turned into a forest of swords. The 6 great cultivators were all enveloped within. Their expressions were incomparably unsightly. This swordsmanship was too terrifying. Their bodies frenziedly rushed towards Qin Wentian, yet they felt an incomparably fearsome resistance from the swords. Qin Wentian gripped his astral nova tightly, his cold eyes staring downwards as he took his 6th step. The sword forest in this space was filled with sword rain. After which, drops of blood rained down along with the sword chi. The 6 experts watched as their bodies gradually disintegrated under the sword will. All of them had looks of despair on their faces. No. Qin Wentian's astral novas returned to his body. With a wave of his hand, the interspatial ring floating in the air was collected by him. His silhouette flickered as he soared up into the air. At the instant he exited the precipice, little rascal immediately leapt into his embrace. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed, and then his figure flickered as he chased after the experts of the major forces. Chapter 485. The heavenly mountain range was mysterious and unfathomable, spanning over 10,000 miles. Ancient peaks were interconnected, and there were many danger zones. Occasionally, there would be a bewildering fog formation, and it was easy to fall into it. Not only that, in the depths of the heavenly mountain range, there would be powerful demonic beasts cultivating there. They wouldn't allow anyone to disturb them. Hence, no one dared to say that they were completely familiar with the heavenly mountain range. Even celestial phenomenon ascendants wouldn't be able to see the complete picture of the heavenly mountain range. On the contrary, there were some adventurers who would frequently venture into the depths of the heavenly mountain range and would occasionally discover something. At this moment, the eagle-eyed middle-aged man who told everyone about the discovery of the heavenly mountain range led the experts from the various major powers to the depths of the heavenly mountain range. The air here was extremely thin, and there was a thick fog in the air, causing people to feel extremely uncomfortable. Occasionally, a gust of cold wind would blow by, causing people to feel a chill. We should already be in the depths of the heavenly mountain range. How much longer do we need? At this moment, someone stared at the eagle-eyed middle-aged man as he asked. If it was an ordinary place, we would have long been discovered. This place is extremely mysterious. If it wasn't for a stroke of good fortune, even I wouldn't have been able to sense it. The eagle-eyed middle-aged man replied. He wasn't worried that these experts wouldn't fulfill their promise and kill him. Even if this matter was simple, these people wouldn't do such a thing. If not, in the future, if there were people who discovered treasures or secret realms in the heavenly mountain range, they wouldn't dare to say it out loud. Nobody would do such a foolish thing. This was also the reason why in the heavenly mountain treasure seizing assembly, those who wanted to seize treasures would engage in a life and death battle. For example, before this, there were many who targeted Qin Wentian, but these people wouldn't target the person who presented the treasures. Once this happened, the heavenly mountain treasure seizing assembly would only exist in name. Upon hearing the words of the eagle-eyed middle-aged man, the others nodded their heads and continued on their way. This group of people was extremely majestic. There were at least a few hundred of them. There were a total of 8 major powers participating, and each of them had at least 30 experts at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. As for those who weren't from the major powers, they couldn't afford to antagonize these existences, and they were also worried that they might encounter danger in the depths of the heavenly mountain range. Hence, they naturally didn't dare to follow them. However, there was one person who was silently following these experts. His perception was tracking him, but no one noticed him. After a period of time, everyone arrived at a mystical place. This place was filled with the spiritual chi of the heavenly mountain range. It was square-shaped and the 8 mountain peaks were extremely symmetrical, separated into 8 corners. In the center, there was a gigantic ancient mountain. This mountain sat on the ground, exuding an ancient aura, as though it had existed for countless years. We're here. The eagle-eyed middle-aged man spoke, his words causing looks of bewilderment to flicker in the eyes of the crowd. After which, they only saw the eagle-eyed middle-aged man pointing to a certain location in the ancient mountain. Look at that gigantic boulder at the waist of the mountain, it's shaped like a gate. If you hit it, you will be able to enter the mysterious realm. The crowd's eyes flickered with sharpness. This mystical realm was located within an ancient mountain, yet it was actually so miraculous. Go and try. Yin Cheng spoke to one of them. After that, the silhouette of one of them flickered as he dashed towards the gigantic boulder the eagle-eyed man was pointing at. In an instant, his silhouette vanished from the spot where he stood. It's true. The eyes of the crowd gleamed with sharpness. A mountain was actually the entrance to the mysterious realm. This was even more miraculous compared to the other mysterious realms they had encountered before. Have you entered before? Yin Ting asked the eagle-eyed middle-aged man. Naturally. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't be able to see through the gate at all. I just so happened to enter. The mysterious realm is incomparably vast and I was attacked by a 4th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign, hence I immediately exited. Right. Yin Ting nodded. With a wave of his hand, several yuan meteor stones flew towards the eagle-eyed middle-aged man. The leaders of the other powers all waved their hands as yuan meteor stones flew into the hands of the eagle-eyed middle-aged man, causing a radiant smile to appear on his face. These yuan meteor stones were sufficient for him to cultivate for a very long time. I'll take my leave then. After keeping the yuan meteor stones, the eagle-eyed middle-aged man silently retreated. The others exchanged glances before their gazes landed on those from the central king's manor. Beside Shang Yu, there was a young man exuding an imposing aura. This man was extremely famous in Xian King City, Shang Qi, or Prince Qi. Back then, Yin Cheng wanted to curry favor with him, wanting to gift him an ancient halberd. This was the reason why he sought out Grandmaster Qi Yezi, resulting in a bloody incident that left a bad reputation for the Yin clan. Prince Qi, everyone from the central king's manor, please enter first. Someone spoke. Shang Qi nodded his head, waving his hands as several people entered the ancient mountain. Not too long after, the silhouettes all disappeared. Each power left behind 2 people to guard the entrance, causing the entire space to turn silent. There was no movement from within the ancient mountain, it was as though those people had vanished. It was extremely mysterious. After a period of time, the sound of wind could be heard from afar. Who is it? The guards at the entrance coldly snorted. However, they only saw a beam of light flying over, so fast that they couldn't even see its shadow. Bzzz. The humming of a sword could be heard as a terrifying sword chi swept through the air, causing the guards to all retreat. After which, they only saw the entrance of the ancient mountain flickering with astral light as a silhouette directly walked into the ancient mountain. That's the power of teleportation. The guards exchanged glances, only to hear one of them asking, should we enter? No need, it's useless even if we enter. Although this person is proficient in teleportation, his aura isn't too strong. Given the strength of the people inside, they should be able to deal with him. There's no need for us to worry. A person replied, his words causing the others to nod their heads. Most probably, it wouldn't be long before the experts from the various sects and clans arrived. Qin Wentian stepped into the ancient mountain, and the scene before him was instantly stunned. Blue skies, white clouds drifting about, mountains, rivers, and ancient trees. How could this be the interior of a mountain? It was clearly a vast spatial world. There's a hidden dimension within this ancient mountain. What kind of mountain is this? Qin Wentian murmured as he stepped out. If one didn't travel far, they would never know the wonders and vastness of the outside world. This trip to Grand Shang hadn't even lasted for long, but there were already so many new things appearing, toppling everything he knew. What could be hidden within this ancient mountain? Qin Wentian mused. His silhouette flickered rapidly, and the eyes of little rascal in his embrace shone brightly as it surveyed its surroundings, as though it was extremely interested. Although little rascal couldn't speak, its intellect wasn't any different from humans. It was extremely intelligent, and could clearly see everything that was happening in the outside world. Little rascal, it's all up to you now. Qin Wentian placed little rascal down. Little rascal's eyes gleamed with a bright light as it surveyed its surroundings. An instant later, it started sprinting madly, akin to a bolt of white lightning. Its speed was so fast that Qin Wentian had to use all his strength in order to keep up with it. Little rascal brought Qin Wentian across a vast area. If this place was only as big as the ancient mountain on the outside, it was unknown how many miles they had traversed. Evidently, the vastness of this place couldn't be compared to the size of the ancient mountain on the outside world. At this moment, little rascal brought Qin Wentian to a mountain range. This mountain range was extremely winding, resembling the heavenly mountains on the outside world. There were mountains within the mountains, seas within the mountains, rivers within the plains. There's someone ahead. Qin Wentian could clearly sense the aura of a battle. Little Rascal and Qin Wentian instantly increased their speed as they advanced. After traversing several mountain ranges, Qin Wentian finally saw the silhouettes of people. It's them. Qin Wentian narrowed his eyes as he continued sprinting forward. The two silhouettes that appeared in front of him were none other than the pair of martial siblings he had met during the treasure-seizing gathering. At that time, he had even given up a stalk of blood shadow Ganoderma to that female. When that female asked for his name, he merely replied that they were strangers who met by chance. There was no need to ask too much. Who would have thought that they would meet again so soon, and in this mysterious realm? Seems like they had already discovered this mysterious realm. Not only that, the injuries of that female might have originated from this mysterious realm. Qin Wentian mused. Naturally, there weren't only those martial siblings in front of him. The two of them were currently facing off against a ferocious demonic beast. This demonic beast was an azure ox. It was 5 meters tall and had a gigantic body. When it breathed out, a thunderous sound could be heard. Its 4 hooves were firmly rooted to the ground, giving off an intense pressure. This ox demon was a demonic beast at the peak of the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, and its aura was extremely terrifying. Demonic beasts were born with extremely powerful combat prowess. Under the same level of cultivation, their combat prowess would often be stronger than humans. Not only that, their life force was also exuberant, allowing them to endure beatings. Although there were injuries on the body of this ox demon, its aura didn't waver. On the other hand, the aura of the martial siblings was fluctuating slightly. Yaya. Little Rascal let out a series of sounds. Its adorable actions seemed to be telling Qin Wentian to look at the thing behind the ox demon. Qin Wentian naturally noticed the thing behind the ox demon. It was an ancient tree that towered up to the heavens. The roots of this ancient tree were intertwined, and its branches were intertwined. Its height was at least 100 meters, and it occupied an extremely large area. This ancient tree stood alone atop the ancient mountain, making it stand out from the masses. Its life force must be extraordinary. On top of the ancient tree, there were a few gigantic fruits. The color of these fruits was different from the rest. They were actually an earthen yellow in color. Not only that, they gave off an intense feeling of heaviness, as though these fruits were born from the condensation of the spiritual qi in this mountain range. What tree is this? Qin Wentian wasn't very familiar with ancient trees and spiritual grasses. If Mo Qingqing was here, she would definitely be able to recognize it easily, but obviously, he wouldn't be able to. However, with a powerful ox demon as its protector, and 2 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns fighting for it, it was obvious that this was an extraordinary item. The martial siblings naturally also noticed the arrival of Qin Wentian. The young man frowned, while the female had a look of joy on her face. She then spoke, "It's you, let's join forces to deal with this ox demon." This ox demon has consumed the great earth fruit. Its attacks and defenses are both extremely terrifying, and its mandate is extremely tough to deal with. Great earth fruit. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. Chapter 486. Qin Wentian scrutinized the fruits on the tree. They were yellow in color and exuded a sense of heaviness, as though they had swallowed the essence of the earth. This was indeed the legendary great earth fruit. In that case, the ancient tree in front of him was none other than the great earth fruit tree. The great earth fruit tree took 100 years to take root, 200 years to mature, and 300 years to bear the great earth fruit, absorbing the essence of the earth. No wonder the surroundings of this mountain seemed so desolate. It was because all the essence was absorbed by this tree. The ox demon guarding the great earth fruit tree was none other than the great earth green ox king. Human, scram. The great earth green ox glanced at Qin Wentian as an incomparably heavy pressure bore down on Qin Wentian. In that instant, Qin Wentian felt as though he couldn't even lift his feet. That powerful mandate of Great Earth made him feel as though his entire body weighed a few thousand jin. The Great Earth Green Ox King had been guarding this place for hundreds of years. Now that the Great Earth fruit had bloomed, it naturally couldn't allow a human to snatch it away. It had already consumed a few of the Great Earth fruits on the tree. As for the rest, it would be a waste if it swallowed them all in one go. Hence, it wouldn't allow others to partake. The Great Earth fruit was born after absorbing the essence of the earth. Green Ox King, since you've already eaten the Great Earth fruit, you still want to keep the rest for yourself? Aren't you a little too greedy? The female berated. The ox demon stomped its front hooves on the ground, causing the earth to tremble violently. A terrifying fluctuation permeated the air, causing Qin Wentian to feel his internal organs trembling. Qin Wentian's countenance grew heavy, he didn't dare to underestimate this demon. The vitality of demonic beasts was extremely powerful, and their physiques were extremely sturdy. Their strength and defense were even more perfect compared to the human Wuxia. My name is Ji Shui, this is my senior brother, Su Feng. Do you know how I should address you now? The female stared at Qin Wentian as she smiled. Qin Wentian replied. Brother Qin, this Great Earth Green Ox King is able to create the Great Earth Prison. Its mandate of Great Earth has reached the acme of perfection. If the three of us work together, it should be easier. I will control it, you help break through its defenses. My senior brother's attacks are more powerful, he will be the one to attack. Ji Shui smiled. Sure. Qin Wentian nodded slightly. Alright, let's make our move. Ji Shui released her astral nova, it was actually an immortal binding rope. Instantly, it swept out. The Azure Ox King seemed to know how powerful this astral nova was. With a roar, the earth trembled as incomparably sharp blades directly pierced out from the ground, wanting to penetrate the bodies of the three of them. Qin Wentian and the others soared up into the air. However, the Azure Ox King opened his mouth and spat out a terrifying prison that trapped the three of them. Break! Long spears appeared in the hands of Qin Wentian and Su Feng. Their attacks were terrifying, capable of penetrating through everything, directly breaking out of the prison. Ji Shui's body was covered in countless swords, piercing into every corner of the prison. With a thunderous boom, the prison was shattered. Her immortal binding chains directly shot towards the Azure Ox King, binding him tightly, giving him no way to evade. The immortal binding rope was like an invisible net. It didn't have much offensive power, but it was extremely tough. It couldn't be broken. Pang! The Azure Ox King soared up into the air. Ji Shui's body was also dragged along, but her strength was inferior to the Azure Ox King. Brother Qin! Ji Shui called out. At this moment, Qin Wentian had already broken out of the prison. His silhouette whistled through the air as a terrifying demonic chi gushed forth. A gigantic black sword appeared in his hands. The defense of this Azure Ox King was terrifying. Qin Wentian's sword sound attack wouldn't be able to kill it. The sword sound attack was sharp, fast and unpredictable, but its true offensive power was on the weaker side. It was easier to deal with the human Wuxia, but against a demonic beast like the Azure Ox King, it would be extremely difficult to kill it. In terms of pure attack power, the fusion of the mandate of force and the mandate of demonic beasts was clearly stronger. Qin Wentian's second-level mandate of force was the void shockwave ripples. When the void shatters blasted into the bodies of his opponents, it would be able to shatter everything within their bodies, killing through the air. Although the Azure Ox King's defense was strong, its speed was its weakness. Not only that, it was still restrained by the immortal binding rope. Upon seeing Qin Wentian lunging over, the Azure Ox King's gigantic eyes stared at Qin Wentian. With a roar of rage, Qin Wentian's body trembled violently, as though he was about to be torn apart. A terrifying gravitational force caused his body to sink downwards, causing him to be unable to unleash his speed. Powerful indeed. Qin Wentian stared at the Azure Ox King. Demonic chi gushed forth from his body as his bloodline thrummed. Stellar transposition, his silhouette directly appeared in front of the Azure Ox King as he slashed out with his gigantic sword. The Azure Ox King howled. Its entire body was enveloped by an earthen yellow light, transforming into a screen of light that resembled a statue. This was its supreme defense. Ordinary 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't even be able to break through its defense, let alone kill it. Break! Qin Wentian coldly snorted. The incomparably heavy black gigantic sword directly slammed into the light screen, imbued with his will of swords. A terrifying shockwave of sharpness radiated outwards, shattering the light screen into pieces before disintegrating into nothingness. Even with Qin Wentian's strength, he only managed to shatter the screen of light. Although the aftershock of his attack blasted into the body of the Azure Ox King, it wasn't enough to cause it any serious injuries. However, Su Feng, who had been accumulating his strength, finally made his move. His entire person was like a bolt of lightning, descending from the skies. The tip of his long spear glowed with a golden light, instantly landing on the Azure Ox King's body. However, the speed of the long spear was simply too fast, directly penetrating through the Azure Ox King's head. Piercing sounds rang out as the long spear penetrated through everything. The Azure Ox King let out a roar of despair, causing the entire area to tremble violently. Su Feng pulled out his long spear, while Qin Wentian similarly retreated. The aura of the frenzied Azure Ox King grew weaker and weaker as an unwillingness flickered in his eyes. After which, he slammed into the ground with a thunderous boom. It's over. Ji Shui spoke in a low voice. This Azure Ox King was truly troublesome to deal with. Although her senior brother's attacks were powerful, he had been tangling with the Azure Ox King for too long. Although he could break through the Azure Ox King's defense, it was impossible for him to find an opportunity to kill it in a single strike. Who would have thought that Qin Wentian would be so powerful as well, breaking through the defense of the Azure Ox King with a single strike? Only with the cooperation of the three of them could they end the battle in such a short period of time. Awesome! Ji Shui turned and praised Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian didn't say anything. Their gazes shifted over, only to see that 2 great earth fruits had already been plucked from the great earth fruit tree. A snow-white puppy was lying on the ground, hugging a gigantic great earth fruit. Its appearance was extremely comical, and its jaws were unceasingly nibbling on one of the great earth fruits. Qin Wentian rolled his eyes. This little rascal, while he was fighting, this little fellow had already started to steal the fruits. Su Feng's silhouette flickered as he appeared above the great earth fruit tree, wanting to pluck the great earth fruits. Ji Shui also arrived at the great earth fruit tree, plucking one and tossed it over to Qin Wentian. 7 fruits, you and that little fellow will get 3, and the 2 of us will get 2 each. Su Feng frowned when he heard Ji Shui's words. But when he thought of the blood shadow Ganoderma, he didn't say anything and allowed Qin Wentian to take advantage of the situation. Although they could also capture the Azure Ox King, they would have to spend some effort to do so. Although this great earth fruit was extremely valuable, it wasn't too useful to them. However, at this moment, a raging wind gusted over from afar. 7 to 8 figures flashed through the air, and not long after, they arrived here. The person in the lead stared at Su Feng and Ji Shui as a strange light flashed in his eyes. Brother Su Feng, Miss Ji Shui, I didn't expect the 2 of you to be in this mysterious realm. That person clasped his hands, appearing extremely courteous. Behind him, there was another person staring at Qin Wentian as he transmitted his voiceover. After which, the eyes of that person flickered as he similarly turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian. So it turned out that this person was the one who had offended Shang Yu before, and even tortured Yin Cheng and Jin Zhan. He actually managed to break through the defenses of the outer perimeter and entered the mysterious realm. Xia Yu from the Ecliptic sect. Su Feng stared at the young man in the air. This group of people was none other than the Ecliptic sect, a major power in Xian King City. Xiaoyu was a demon-level genius of the Ecliptic sect. Seems like the other major powers had also discovered this mysterious realm and entered it. Brother Su Feng, we discovered some miraculous treasures in the mysterious realm and suffered heavy losses. Over 10 of our brothers have fallen. Now that we've met the two of you, why don't we join forces? Xiaoyu spoke. Qin Wentian and the others also discovered that the auras of this group of people were extremely unstable, as though they had just experienced a great battle. The gazes of Su Feng and Ji Shui stiffened as they exchanged mutual glances, as though they were discussing their thoughts. After which, Su Feng asked, "What did you discover?" "I'm not sure yet. The location of the mysterious realm is actually a Yuan meteor stone mine. Not only that, the astral energy within the mine was completely sucked dry, transforming into a stone mountain. The wind dried it up and transformed it into a cave dwelling. A terrifying aura emanated from it, and there are also a few extremely terrifying demonic beasts guarding it. My brothers were killed by them." Xiaoyu spoke, his words causing Su Feng and Ji Shui to silently muse in their hearts. Indeed, these people had also discovered the mysterious realm. Earlier, Ji Shui's injuries were all at the location Xiaoyu spoke of. After which, they went out to recuperate before exploring the mysterious realm again. However, they didn't dare to be as brazen as before, choosing to slowly explore it. If this mysterious realm is so powerful, even with the two of us, wouldn't it be difficult to deal with it? Su Feng probed. That place isn't hard to discover. Other than me, there would definitely be other powers that have sensed it as well. When they feel the pressure, they would temporarily join forces. However, if a supreme treasure really appears, there would definitely be fights over it. The reason why I invited the two of you here is to prepare for a rainy day. Xiaoyu slowly spoke. The people here weren't fools. Right. Su Feng nodded his head in agreement. He too wanted to investigate what was inside exactly. Brother Qin, how about we go together? Ji Shui turned her gaze to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian contemplated for a moment before nodding his head. If Xiaoyu and the other powers couldn't even take down the mysterious realm, his strength alone wouldn't be enough. This Ji Shui's personality wasn't bad, he could rest assured if he joined forces with her. Not only that, after obtaining the spatial brush, he had already inscribed a spatial scroll. That was his greatest reliance. Even if he encountered danger, he wouldn't fear it. Chapter 487. Xiaoyu was a heaven's chosen of the Ecliptic sect. Although he was arrogant, he wasn't a fool. Now that Ji Shui had invited Qin Wentian to join them, it clearly indicated that Qin Wentian's strength wasn't weak. In addition to the rumors he heard earlier, he naturally wouldn't obstruct Qin Wentian's strength. As for the grudge between Qin Wentian and the princess, that could be discussed after they snatched the treasure. In this world, there was no such thing as eternal enemies or friends. Since this is the case, let's move out. Xiaoyu spoke. After which, he turned and sped away. The speed of the group was extremely fast. Ji Shui flew beside Qin Wentian as she asked, "Brother Qin, which sect are you from? Why haven't we met before?" "I'm someone who went out to temper myself. I haven't been in Xian King City for a long time." Qin Wentian replied. "I see." Ji Shui nodded her head as she smiled. "Me and senior brother are both external disciples of the Qinghua Mountains. We're ashamed to say that we've never been able to enter the Qinghua Mountains. Brother Qin's talent is extraordinary, if you go and try, you might even have a chance to become Wuxia of the Qinghua Mountains." Qinghua Mountains. Qin Wentian was taken aback. Since this Xiaoyu was able to enter the Qinghua Mountains, it meant that he was from one of the strongest powers in Xian King City. However, it was obvious that he was extremely respectful towards Ji Shui and Su Feng, treating them as equals. But Ji Shui actually said that he was only an external disciple of the Qinghua Mountains. In that case, what power was this Qinghua Mountains from? How strong is the Qinghua Mountains in Xianqing City? Qin Wentian casually asked, not thinking too much about it. However, his words caused Ji Shui to start. Even Xiaoyu who was in front of them turned his head to glance at him. Could it be that this fellow had just arrived in the Seven King cities? He actually hadn't heard of the Qinghua Mountains before. Ji Shui casually laughed as she explained to Qin Wentian, the Qinghua Mountain isn't a power that belongs to the Xianqing city. It's just that the Qinghua Mountain is located in the 7 royal cities of Grand Shang, and there's an outer mountain where the outer disciples of the Qinghua Mountain gather. And in the royal capital of Grand Shang, there's an inner mountain that's guarded by true disciples of the Qinghua Mountain. As for the real Qinghua Mountain, it is located in absolute Monarch Sanctuary, and is one of the 9 sects under the Glory sect. They are able to recommend disciples into the Glory sect, and once they are recommended, their status will not be too low. Ji Shui patiently explained, her words causing a look of surprise to flash in Qin Wentian's eyes. In that case, the status of the Qinghua Mountain is equivalent to the Grand Shang Empire. When he was in Grand Xia, he had heard of Jun Yu's identity before. Jun Yu was a disciple of an elder of the royal sacred sect, and this elder was once a king of Grand Shang. Qin Wentian naturally understood what this signified. The royal sacred sect was like a hegemon of an era. All the demon-level geniuses that appeared in Grand Shang would all join them. This Qinghua Mountain was the same as the Grand Shang Empire. That's right, the Qinghua Mountain is a hegemon of the Grand Shang Empire. If you compare it to the Xianqing city, I naturally have no way to answer you directly. Ji Shui smiled. Qin Wentian nodded his head as his heart pounded. The selection process the royal sacred sect had for geniuses was simply too terrifying. In this boundlessly vast territory, there were 3 empires, the Qinghua Mountain, and other powers similar to the Qinghua Mountain. These powers were all subordinates of the royal sacred sect, and they would constantly send talents into the royal sacred sect, nurturing fresh blood. At the end, those most outstanding demon-level geniuses would all join the royal sacred sect. From this, one could very well imagine how terrifying the foundations of a power like this was. This was a true hegemon of Grand Xia. None of the transcendent powers in Grand Xia had such a selection system. Not only that, for these powers that sent talents to the royal sacred sect, there was also an intense competition between them. The royal sacred sect would definitely not allow such a competition to happen. The various transcendent powers would also do their best to nurture outstanding geniuses and send them to the royal sacred sect, hoping that one day, they would become important characters of the royal sacred sect. After generations of development, Qin Wentian could already imagine how intense the competition within the royal sacred sect would be. This was because the geniuses were all from different powers. Brother Qin, I'm also not someone from a transcendent power. But after becoming an outer mountain disciple of the Qinghua Mountain, I already have an extraordinary status. If you can pass the inner mountain test and become a true disciple of the Qinghua Mountain, no one in the Xianqing city would dare to touch you. Ji Shui casually smiled. Qin Wentian could naturally feel that Ji Shui's identity as an outer mountain disciple was already sufficient to cause the geniuses of the transcendent powers to respect her. Thank you for your guidance. Qin Wentian thanked as he silently noted it down in his heart. He wasn't in a hurry to join any of the transcendent powers. He already had a sacred royal medallion on him, it wasn't difficult for him to take the first step. Hence, he had to choose carefully. Ji Shui casually smiled as the two of them continued chatting. After some time, they arrived at a flat piece of land. The wind gusted on their bodies, causing them to feel a chill akin to knives. Qin Wentian turned his gaze ahead only to see a stone mine that spanned over 100 miles. However, just like what Xiaoyu had said, there wasn't even the slightest bit of astral energy within this stone mine. All of it had been devoured cleanly, and the stone mine that was as large as a mountain was dried up by the wind, turning into a pile of petrified rocks. When they arrived, Su Feng took out his long spear. His silhouette flickered as he transformed into a bolt of lightning, stabbing out with his long spear, causing sparks to fly in all directions. Su Feng retracted his spear, his gaze was extremely calm. His spear arts could be said to be extremely powerful, yet under his spear strike, he had only managed to break through the surface layer of the petrified rocks. If he were to forcefully destroy the petrified rocks, he didn't know how long it would take. As expected, it's still the same. Su Feng silently mused. His silhouette retreated back to his original location as he stared at the entrance of the stone mine. Within it, a strange aura could be felt, causing people to feel a sense of fear. Back then when he and Ji Shui entered, they were attacked by powerful demonic beasts. He really wanted to know what exactly was hidden within this stone mine. Xia Yu took a few steps forward. Astral light flashed around him as a bow appeared in his hands. Abruptly, he shot out explosively towards the entrance of the stone mine. The sound of the arrow whistling through the air could be heard. The entrance of the stone mine seemed to be so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. "Everyone, be careful." Xia Yu faintly spoke. The entire space was exceptionally quiet, but after an instant, everyone suddenly felt the ground trembling. Their hearts involuntarily pounded violently. Boom! The tremors intensified. The countenances of Xia Yu and the rest turned heavy, and at this moment, whistling sounds drifted over from afar. A group of silhouettes were madly sprinting over, and their eyes flickered when they saw Xia Yu and the rest. "Brother Xia, you wish to enter?" The person in the lead exuded an evil aura, giving off a sinister feeling. "Do the experts from the Blood Cloud sect want to enter with us?" Xia Yu stared at the experts in the air. When the experts from the Blood Cloud sect saw Su Feng, Ji Shui and Qin Wentian, their eyes flickered as they nodded their heads. "Since Brother Xia has discovered something, we shall accept your invitation. Let's go." Xia Yu ignored the tremors as he walked towards the cave. The others followed behind him as they extended their perception outwards. Boom! That throbbing sensation grew increasingly intense. Qin Wentian only felt his heart pounding unceasingly as his blood surged. Little Rascal did its best to burrow into his bosom, as though it could sense that the aura here was extraordinary. "I don't sense the aura of demonic beasts." Su Feng had a bewildered expression on his face. At this moment, they had already entered the depths of the cave. The interior of the stone mine was pitch black, and they couldn't see the bottom. There were also many forks in the surroundings, resembling a maze. "Brother Xie, why do I feel something is wrong? What is this place?" Someone from the Blood Cloud sect asked. "I'm not sure." Xie Yu replied, his words causing the eyes of the other party to freeze as he silently cursed himself for being too careless. He actually didn't hesitate to follow them in. Time seemed to pass by extremely slowly. An hour felt like an eternity to them, yet they didn't encounter anything at all. Only their hearts were pounding unceasingly. Something's wrong. At this moment, Qin Wentian halted his steps. His brows were furrowed as he faintly sensed an intense sense of danger. His perception had always been extremely sharp, yet he couldn't sense anything at all. Where did this sense of danger originate from? Boom! Another intense throbbing sound rang out, causing Qin Wentian's sense of unease to grow even more intense. "Yi-ya-ya!" Little Rascal let out an intense screech. Its body abruptly expanded as it transformed into a golden-colored demon king, exuding a terrifying aura. Occasionally, the baleful aura of the purgatory vermilion bird could be seen flickering in its eyes. Roar! Little Rascal lunged forward, actually lunging in the direction of Xie Yu. Beside Xie Yu, a figure abruptly turned around. In that instant, Qin Wentian saw a terrifying red glow flickering in the eyes of that person. It was as though that person had lost all rationality, and a low, beast-like roar rang out from his mouth. Not only him, there were two other people beside him as well. Their eyes gleamed with a red light as they exuded the aura of a wild beast. That person lifted his arm and punched out towards Little Rascal. Instantly, the fist light shattered the void. Little Rascal howled in rage and swallowed the attack with a single gulp, as though it wanted to devour the innate technique. At the same time, Qin Wentian abruptly turned around. He saw a terrifying silhouette appearing in front of him. This silhouette was completely crimson in color, even its eyes were crimson. When it stepped out, it caused the blood in the hearts of those who saw it to palpitate wildly. The demonic chi from Qin Wentian actually gushed forth uncontrollably as the demonic energy in his body started to churn violently. Even his bloodline was in chaos. What demonic beast is this? It can actually trigger the demonic chi in my body and even wants to demonize my bloodline. Could it be that the people of the ecliptic sect were unknowingly controlled by it? Qin Wentian's heart pounded rapidly. What kind of terrifying demonic beast was this? At the entrance of the two caves, another two demonic beasts appeared. However, if one were to look closely, they would discover that these demonic beasts actually had the appearance of humans. It's precisely this type of demonic beast. Ji Shui stared at the demonic beast as her countenance grew incredibly unsightly. She was injured by this type of demonic beast. Demonization, demonization. This demonic beast isn't a demonic beast, but a demonic spirit formed from the purest will of the demonic beasts. It can even demonize others. Su Feng seemed to have thought of something as his countenance grew heavy. This incomparably gigantic ancient mountain, what was it exactly? The great earth fruit tree was born after absorbing the essence of the will of the earth. And now, such a monster had appeared in this place. Chapter 488. Qin Wentian's countenance turned heavy. In the depths of the ancient pathway of darkness, more and more demonified monsters appeared. Their eyes all gleamed with red light as the bloodlines in their bodies trembled uncontrollably. It was as though they were gradually being demonified as a tyrannical aura radiated from them. Qin Wentian's fiend transformation art involuntarily erupted forth. His mandate of demons gushed forth as a terrifying demonic chi gushed forth from him. Those from the Blood Cloud sect and Ecliptic sect all distanced themselves from him. Su Feng pulled Ji Shui along as they retreated, yet Ji Shui stared at Qin Wentian as she asked, "Brother Qin." "Nothing, I've cultivated the mandate of demons." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. "We have to leave this place." Everyone nodded their heads. At this moment, they knew that they had been ambushed. That demonic spirit had already gained sentience and was extremely intelligent. "Go!" Qin Wentian roared. At this moment, those demonic beasts howled as they lunged towards them. This place was too narrow, it was difficult for them to unleash their full potential. Xia Yu of the Ecliptic sect erupted forth with his astral nova. 9 arms actually appeared on his body as he brandished a gigantic flaming bow, shooting out arrows that instantly killed the demonic beasts beside him who hadn't fully demonized yet. Tossing the bow away, he dashed towards the entrance of the cavern as his 9 arms punched out with an earth-shattering might. Ji Shui also moved. Her immortal binding chains shot out in all 8 directions, binding all the demonic beasts that appeared in the cavern. Su Feng was in front of her, rushing towards the entrance of the cavern. His long spear was like a beam of light, unstoppable. That demonic beast howled, wanting to evade the spear, yet Su Feng's palms trembled as his long spear actually split apart, transforming into 3 short spears that blocked the path of the demonic beast, piercing into its body and causing it to be flung through the air. However, that demonic beast didn't die, it crawled back up and blocked the path of retreat. These demonic beasts are unkillable, they don't fear pain at all. The voice of Leng Tu from the blood cloud sect trembled. And at this moment, the demonic beast that hadn't moved since the beginning finally moved. Every step it took caused the hearts of the crowd to pound even more violently. A tyrannical aura gushed forth frenziedly, as though it was on the verge of losing control. It's over. Everyone had looks of despair on their faces. Although they couldn't kill those demonic beasts in a short period of time, they could still contend against them. However, this demonic beast king made them feel powerless. The blood-red eyes swept across the crowd, causing them to almost descend into madness. Their veins popped out and their blood vessels bulged. A suffocating pressure of death enveloped everyone. Xiaoyu, Leng Tu, your men will hold back those demonized monsters. We'll deal with this demon spirit. Otherwise, we'll all die here. Su Feng swept a glance at the situation inside. Xiaoyu and Leng Tu nodded slightly. This was the only thing they could do now. Xiaoyu, Leng Tu, Su Feng, Ji Shui, as well as Qin Wentian, were facing the powerful demon spirit. Beside Qin Wentian, Little Rascal exuded the aura of a king as it stared at the demonic spirit before shifting its gaze onto Qin Wentian. Its eyes flickered with the light of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird as it roared at Qin Wentian. Purgatory, does it need this demonic spirit? Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to Little Rascal. Little Rascal let out a low roar as it nodded its head. The baleful aura in its eyes grew even denser as the light of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird flickered in and out of existence, as though it was filled with anticipation. Qin Wentian stroked the face of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird as he nodded his head with a heavy expression on his face. This is what I promised you, I'll definitely do it. After speaking, he turned his gaze onto the demonic spirit as a fearsome battle intent gushed forth from him. As the crowd neared the demonic spirit, the tyrannical aura radiating from them was completely stimulated. Ji Shui's bloodline power erupted forth as her long hair fluttered in the wind. Her eyes shone like the stars in the night sky as the immortal binding rope transformed into countless strands that shot out. The demonic spirit let out a low roar as the entire cavern trembled. Everyone felt as though their blood was about to burst out from their bodies. Bzzz. Su Feng released his astral nova as his silhouette flickered with the speed of lightning. The astral nova in his hands shone with a resplendent silver light as it transformed into a 9-meter-long spear. With a thrust of his spear, a vortex of astral light appeared as he pierced towards the eyes of the demonic spirit. The demonic spirit inclined its head slightly, using its face to defend while its body struggled madly. The immortal binding rope felt as though it was on the verge of exploding. That long spear spun rapidly in the air, yet there was no sign of blood. Each of Xiaoyu's 9 arms was holding onto a resplendent golden arrow. His body followed the arrow, and 9 palm imprints slammed down at the same time. Heaven and earth seemed to be on the verge of collapse, slamming onto the head of the demonic beast. A spiked blood-colored glove appeared in the hands of Leng Tu from the blood cloud sect. He pressed it against the forehead of the demonic spirit as boundless blood energy gushed into the body of the demonic spirit. Roar! The demonic spirit inclined its head as it howled in rage. A demonic blood-colored light enveloped the entire space, enveloping everyone as the blood in their veins throbbed madly. This demonic spirit didn't attack, it only wanted to turn the humans into demons instead. Qin Wentian walked out step by step. Every step he took contained a terrifying demonic will. At this moment, a terrifying will of the monarch of demons gushed forth from his body, as though the blood in his body was being stimulated by the demonic spirit. Little Rascal was the same as Qin Wentian. It was as though they were about to be completely awakened by the demonic spirit. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he instantly descended. His killing intent towered up into the sky as the gigantic black sword in his hands instantly slammed into the head of the demonic spirit. Waves of terrifying energy gushed into the demonic spirit, yet the eyes of the demonic spirit were still as red as ever, as cold as ever. It was as though the attacks of everyone here were useless against it. Little Rascal leapt onto the body of the demonic spirit and bit down on the neck of the demonic spirit, frenziedly devouring the energy within the demonic spirit. Roar! At this instant, the demonic spirit was completely enraged. Ji Shue's immortal binding rope couldn't endure it any longer and she hurriedly retracted it. If she persisted any longer, her astral nova would shatter. Boom! The demonic spirit stomped on the ground, as a baleful demonic chi swept over everything. The eyes of Ling Tu and the others started to gleam with a demonic light, as though the blood in their bodies was gradually losing control as they were flung through the air. Qin Wentian and the demonic spirit stared at each other. He felt a towering demonic chi gushing into his body, wanting to control him. However, at this moment, the blood in Qin Wentian's body started to churn frenziedly, faintly condensing into the form of a terrifying primordial demonic spirit that loomed over the world, staring disdainfully at the invading energy. Bang! A terrifying gaze swept over, the body of the demonic spirit trembled violently, as though it was on the verge of collapse. Pooh! Qin Wentian was the first to be unable to endure the terrifying energy in his body. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body was flung through the air, the blood in his body trembling violently. The demonic spirit seemed to have been stimulated. It abruptly leaped into the air, landing heavily on the ground as a thunderous boom echoed out. Little Rascal, who was on its back, was still biting down on the demonic spirit with all its might. Roar, roar, roar. 3 consecutive howls of rage rang out, the demonic spirit was completely enraged. The demonic spirits under its control began to slaughter even more frenziedly, and 3 experts from the other side had already died. However, Su Feng, Xia Yu and the rest were in even more despair. They discovered that all their efforts were futile. In front of this demonic spirit, they couldn't even withstand a single strike. As that immense pressure bore down on them, Ji Shui paled. She murmured in a low voice, "Am I going to die here? Even if I die, I cannot become a monster. I'm unwilling." Ling Tu coldly spat out, filled with an intense reluctance. How could he die here? Su Feng and Xia Yu's countenances were extremely unsightly to behold. They had no way to contend against this demonic spirit. However, Qin Wentian could sense that at this moment, the demonic spirit had locked onto him. Although this demonic spirit had sentience, it still retained the instincts of a demonic spirit. It could sense a terrifying demonic energy emanating from Qin Wentian, and it wanted to subdue it. Qin Wentian glanced at Su Feng and the rest as he spoke, "Since we are allies, I will lure this demonic spirit away. There are 2 paths leading to this demonic spirit. I will take one path while you guys take the other path. Maybe, you might be able to find the treasure it is guarding. If you guys manage to find it, I want a share. How about it?" The countenances of Xia Yu and the rest froze as they stared at Qin Wentian. This person was truly audacious, to think of treasures at this moment. "Fine, if you can lure this demonic spirit away, we will definitely share a share with you," Xia Yu immediately expressed. "No problem." Su Feng and Ling Tu nodded. Qin Wentian stared at the demonic spirit as he dashed out. Stellar transposition instantly appeared behind the demonic spirit as he sprinted towards one of the paths leading to the demonic spirit. As expected, the demonic spirit instantly turned, disregarding everything else as it chased after Qin Wentian. This caused Xia Yu and the rest to exchange glances, feeling as though they had just found a new lease of life in a hopeless situation. This fellow. Ji Shui stared at the back view of the demonic spirit. Xia Yu turned and stared at the battlefield as he spoke, "We need to deal with these demonic spirits first before sending someone to inform the experts of our sect." Ling Tu nodded in agreement. The situation here had already exceeded their expectations. Qin Wentian madly sprinted forward, but the speed of the demonic spirit was even faster. Luckily, he could execute stellar transposition and widen the distance between them. Little Rascal was still latched onto the demonic spirit's back, devouring its flesh and blood. Its ferocious nature seemed to have been completely stimulated. Finally, Qin Wentian arrived at the end of this space. This place was actually a cave with a blood pool. The demonic blood in the pool was boiling, and the demonic qi contained within caused Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. This demonic spirit was birthed from this place. Qin Wentian turned, only to see the demonic spirit howling in rage. A sharp blade appeared on its back, piercing into Little Rascal's body, causing Little Rascal to howl in pain as it lunged towards Qin Wentian. At this moment, the demonic spirit was truly enraged. A pair of wings appeared on its back, and incomparably sharp fangs appeared in its mouth. Its eyes flickered with a blood-red light as it stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. With every step it took, Qin Wentian almost coughed out blood. There was simply no way for him to block. Bzzz. The demonic spirit lunged over. This time around, it was filled with killing intent. Its sharp claws directly tore through everything. The scarlet demon halberd appeared in Qin Wentian's hands as he abruptly slashed out. A dreamlike scene appeared in this space, yet the demonic spirit didn't seem to be affected at all. It was a demonic spirit, how could it be affected by nightmares? Bang! An incomparably powerful force blasted Qin Wentian into the blood pool. At the same time, the demonic spirit grabbed out with its palms, directly pinning Little Rascal to the ground. Its eyes flickered with a terrifying killing intent as it stared at Little Rascal. Too powerful, so powerful that it was impossible to defend against it. The demonic beast bloodline in Qin Wentian's body seethed. He who had fallen into the blood pool actually began to frenziedly devour the energy within. That energy was boundless and boundless, it was the purest form of demonic energy. Release it! Qin Wentian roared. He slowly walked about in the blood pool as a demonic glow revolved around him. He stared at the demonic spirit. If he wanted to defeat it, he could only use the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation or the immortal vanquishing swordplay. If he wanted to use the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation, he would still need to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay. If not, he would only be able to roam the heavens and earth as a demon. This wasn't something he wanted. But if he directly used the immortal vanquishing swordplay, he wouldn't have enough energy left in his body to ignite. He would die. Blood pool. At this moment, Qin Wentian felt the thirst of the demonic beast bloodline in his body. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying light as abruptly, a fearsome sword might gushed forth from him. It was as though his entire body was burning, but at the instant of that, the blood in his body frenziedly devoured the energy within the blood pool. Back then, he borrowed the power of the demonic beast's divinity to ignite his own essence, qi, and spirit to activate the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Now, the energy within the blood pool seemed to be able to replace it. Chapter 489. The demonic beast stared at Qin Wentian as it howled in rage. Its sharp claws slammed into Little Rascal's body, causing blood to flow from Little Rascal's body. Release me! Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he instantly appeared in front of the demonic beast, slashing out with his sword. Bang! The sharp sword slashed onto the demonic beast's body, yet it couldn't move it at all. It stared at Qin Wentian and abruptly lunged forward, wanting to devour everything in its path. Qin Wentian's left arm swung out as an incomparably gigantic heavenly hammer blasted out, directly slamming into the mouth of the demonic beast, sealing its mouth shut. Qin Wentian's body sank into the blood pool once more. The thirst within him grew stronger and stronger as a fearsome demonic light flickered in his eyes. It was unknown how terrifying the demonic energy contained within the blood pool was. It even surpassed the demonic energy he borrowed from the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art back then. Although his body was thirsty, it was impossible for him to devour the blood pool. He could only activate the immortal vanquishing swordplay and devour the demonic energy within his body. I'll risk it all. The sword intent radiating from Qin Wentian grew increasingly terrifying. The entire space was filled with destructive sword might as the blood pool transformed into a fearsome vortex, frenziedly absorbing the demonic energy into Qin Wentian's body. His body was burning with a frenzied intensity. I can endure it. Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't court death. If this method wasn't possible, he would rather be heavily injured and stop using it. But at this moment, he could clearly sense that the demonic energy within the blood pool was sufficient to support him. Little Rascal turned its gaze over to Qin Wentian. The countenance of the vermilion bird flashed as it stared at Qin Wentian. Its gaze was filled with emotions and a sense of attachment. Back then, it was merely a purgatory ancient luck that was born because of Qin Wentian. In its world, there was only Qin Wentian. Roar! The scarlet-eyed demonic beast felt threatened. It roared madly and rushed out once again. Astral light erupted forth, stellar transposition. Qin Wentian retreated once more, yet he was still within the pool of blood. The entire pool transformed into beams of blood-colored light that were absorbed into his body. The entire space seemed to be filled with a blood-colored sword might. Qin Wentian's body was trembling slightly. He was ready to bear the pain that the sword would bring. When the crimson-eyed demonic beast lunged forward again, Qin Wentian's finger pressed downwards. Instantly, the body of the crimson-eyed demonic beast froze in place. The boundless blood-colored sword might bore down on it, as though the entire space was about to be torn apart. The scarlet-eyed demonic beast trembled violently as it raised its head to the sky and roared. The blood pool spun madly as it rapidly dried up. The essence of the blood pool was all burned into the sword. Qin Wentian's finger descended once more, tapping the body of the scarlet-eyed demonic beast. A sword might capable of destroying everything ravaged the demonic beast's body. Extinguish. Qin Wentian's body was completely covered in blood-colored light. That sword strike had completely landed. With a roar of despair, the scarlet-eyed demonic beast lay on the ground. At this moment, the blood pool had already dried up, there was nothing left. Over there, a skeleton could be seen. The light radiating from the skeleton gradually dimmed. Pooh! Qin Wentian sat on the ground as he panted heavily. He took out the blood shadow Ganoderma with great difficulty and swallowed both of them. However, a smile could be seen on his face. He had succeeded. This blood pool had supported the sword strike, but after that, his body felt exceptionally weak. His internal organs were all convulsing violently. However, the terrifying ancient demon bloodline in his body had not been extinguished. It flowed through his body, as if the remaining power of the blood pool demon had been completely absorbed. Wherever the bloodline flowed through, he felt his body recovering rapidly. Rumble, the earth trembled, as though the heavens and earth were about to collapse. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness. Little Rascal came to his side and gently stroked his face. Qin Wentian then spoke to Little Rascal, quickly devour that demonic spirit. With a low roar, Little Rascal turned and dashed towards the demonic spirit that Qin Wentian had intentionally not torn apart. At the same time, the entire space around them actually began to collapse. Outside of the mine, the heavens and earth were similarly collapsing. Many experts in the surroundings inclined their heads and stared at this space, only to see that the entire space was collapsing. What's going on? In the camp of the king's manor, Shang-Chi stared at the sky. Earlier, it was as though a beam of blood-colored light had sliced through this space, causing the entire space to collapse. Sure too, could it be that the space within this mountain was really just a mountain? And now, the mountain is collapsing. The gazes of everyone were filled with shock as they stared at this space. Even the guards outside the mountain were shocked and they saw the mountain collapsing. They discovered that when the mountain was collapsing, it seemed to be collapsing layer by layer, incomparably orderly. Not long after, the entire space had completely collapsed and shattered. The mountain was no longer a mountain, and the water was no longer a river. The vast space could be seen with a single glance. It was really only the width of a mountain. The experts from the various camps could already see each other's existences. What's that? At this moment, the gazes of everyone turned in a certain direction only to see that there was a gigantic ancient tree as tall as a mountain. Its roots were intertwined with each other, as it towered up into the sky. Xia Yu of the Ecliptic sect and Ling Tu of the Blood Cloud sect are over there. At this moment, the silhouettes of the experts flickered, transforming into bolts of lightning as they sped towards the gigantic tree. An instant later, the experts of the various powers all gathered here. Inclining their heads, they stared at the gigantic ancient tree as their hearts pounded violently. The ancient tree exuded a terrifying mandate energy, and on its branches, there were many fruits that shone faintly with the power of constellations. "Oh my God, that's a celestial constellation tree!" Someone exclaimed in shock. They actually discovered an ancient celestial constellation tree here. Celestial constellation tree. The bodies of many trembled as expressions of madness flashed in their eyes. An ancient celestial constellation tree actually appeared here. Return to the king's manor immediately. Only to see Shang-Chi turning his gaze onto a person behind him. That person's countenance turned ashen, as though he was filled with reluctance. But when he saw the coldness in Shang-Chi's eyes, he still nodded his head and started to retreat. They naturally understood what the appearance of an ancient celestial constellation tree signified. An ancient celestial constellation tree can produce celestial constellation fruits. If there are any celestial constellation fruits I need here, it would be sufficient for me to comprehend my mandate faster and step into the perfection boundary of the second level. In the direction of the Yin clan, Yin Ting inclined his head as a crazed light flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that there would actually be a celestial constellation tree here. Not only that, it was an extremely mature celestial constellation tree, with so many celestial constellation fruits on it. Any single celestial constellation fruit was priceless, especially to those who wanted to break through to the mandate boundary. Only to see at this moment, Jian Jingtian from the Heaven-Shocking Sword sect started to sweep the area with his sword intent, frenziedly slashing apart the rocks on the ground, as though he was searching for something. This scene caused the eyes of the others to flash with sharpness. They all knew the origin of the celestial constellation tree from the ancient records, and when they thought of this dimension, their hearts pounded violently. They didn't dare to imagine what it was. This place was actually the burial ground of a legendary character, a character above the celestial phenomenon realm. It was rumored that characters at that level had already condensed an immortal foundation in their bodies, and had the strength of an immortal. They could slay celestial phenomenon ascendants with a single glance, and destroy a group of ascendants with a single punch. No matter how many ascendants there were, they would all die in front of such a legendary character. With just a light pat, it would be like squashing an ant to death. Experts at this level were also the hegemons of this boundless region. The sect leader of the Royal Sacred Sect was precisely such a legendary character. Hence, no one could shake the position of the Royal Sacred Sect in the boundless region they ruled. If one day, such a character also appeared in the Grand Shang Empire, the status of the Grand Shang Empire would surely be incomparable. It would undergo a qualitative change, becoming lofty and lofty, surpassing the limits of the Grand Shang Empire. If one day, there was a country that gave birth to such a legendary character, the status of that country would instantly surpass the Grand Shang Empire, and even surpass it. One could very well imagine the waves of shock in their hearts when they saw the celestial constellation tree and realized that there was such a supreme existence buried here. Not only Jian Jingtian, the others were also frenziedly sweeping the ground. According to the ancient records, the birth of the celestial constellation tree would definitely be nurtured by the blood of that legendary character. Although the celestial constellation tree was incomparably precious, it was here, it wouldn't be able to run away. They wanted to see if there were any treasures left behind by that legendary character. And at this moment, a hand abruptly stretched out from the rubble. The instant this hand appeared, everyone halted their movements as their hearts pounded violently. Bang! An explosive sound rang out as the ground split apart. After which, a silhouette appeared, and when the eyes of everyone clearly saw this silhouette, a look of bewilderment flashed in their eyes. Their mouths twitched involuntarily, the nervousness in their hearts earlier seemed to have been played by someone. "It's you." Shang Yu had a strange expression on her face when she saw Qin Wentian. "You actually didn't die." Yin Cheng's countenance turned sinister. Qin Wentian was actually still alive and had even managed to crawl out from the rubble. Not only him, beside him, a demonic beast also appeared and stood beside Qin Wentian, staring at the crowd. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. He didn't expect that he would recover so quickly after using the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Maybe, it had something to do with the blood pool he swallowed. At this moment, he inclined his head in bewilderment, only to see the ancient tree above him. A strange light involuntarily flashed in his eyes. Could it be that this ancient tree was nourished by the energy of the astral crystal mine? What caused it to grow so strong? Not only that, the aura of the fruits on this ancient tree was even more terrifying compared to the great earth fruit. What made Qin Wentian even more depressed was that this entire space seemed to have collapsed. Everyone was gathered here, and at this moment, numerous gazes landed on him, many of them with unfriendly expressions. "Brother Qin." Ji Shue's melodious voice drifted over. In such a tense atmosphere, it sounded somewhat different. Qin Wentian lightly nodded his head to Ji Shue as he asked, "What tree is this?" "The celestial constellation tree, born from the bloodline of a celestial phenomenon ascendant." "This isn't an astral crystal mine either, it's most likely that the mountain of Yuan meteor stones was sucked dry by the celestial constellation tree, and that crimson-eyed blood demon was also born from the blood of that celestial phenomenon ascendant," Ji Shue explained to Qin Wentian. "The celestial constellation fruit of this celestial constellation tree is also known as the martial wolf fruit. Born from the bloodline of a celestial phenomenon ascendant." Qin Wentian's heart pounded. That pool of blood, he suddenly understood why the pool of blood could withstand his immortal vanquishing swordplay, and why it could recover so quickly. Just when Qin Wentian was still in shock, Xia Yu turned his gaze onto him as he laughed, "Brother Qin, the blood demon that chased after you was born from the bloodline of a legendary ascendant. Now that it has disappeared, it must have been chased by you, right? Since you chased into its lair, did you discover any treasures left behind by that supreme ascendant?" As the sound of Xia Yu's voice faded, Ji Shue's beautiful eyes froze as her countenance turned extremely unsightly. This Xia Yu actually changed his attitude so quickly. The gazes of everyone were focused on Qin Wentian at the same instant, as waves of terrifying cold intent gushed forth. Qin Wentian glanced at Xia Yu, only to see that Xia Yu's countenance was as calm as ever, with a faint smile on his face. It was as though he had already forgotten how his life was saved. Chapter 490. Qin Wentian thought back to the skeleton in his bloodline. However, other than that skeleton, there was nothing else in the surroundings. For such a legendary character to die here, he must have experienced a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering battle. For the defeated, how could the treasures on his body be preserved? Not all experts would leave behind an inheritance before they died. Maybe, there were only skeletons left behind. As for the birth of the celestial constellation tree, it was purely because the bloodline of that expert was too powerful. After countless years, the celestial constellation fruits were born. Xia Yu naturally knew how tyrannical the demonic beast was. He should already be surprised that Qin Wentian could survive. But now that he said such a sentence, it undoubtedly caused the gazes of the crowd to shift to Qin Wentian. This way, the number of gazes on the celestial constellation tree would lessen. Brother Qin was pursued by that demonic beast, how could he have obtained anything in such a short period of time? Xia Yu, aren't your words a little too venomous? Ji Shue stared at Xia Yu, her countenance filled with rage. Earlier, if it wasn't for Qin Wentian drawing the demonic beast away, it would be hard for them to escape death. Now that Qin Wentian crawled out from the rubble, regardless of how he managed to escape, it was clear that he wasn't in a good state. He must have experienced an intense battle. According to Xiaoyu's promise, Qin Wentian would receive a portion of the treasures they discovered. But now, leaving aside the matter of splitting the treasures, this Xiaoyu actually directly placed Qin Wentian in such a dire situation. I'm just casually asking. In any case, there were only two paths earlier. The path we took just so happened to lead us to this ancient tree. If Brother Qin took the path, it wouldn't be surprising if he had some good fortune. Xiaoyu laughed. Shut up. Su Feng coldly snorted, angrily rebuking Xiaoyu. His long spear gleamed with sharpness as he pointed it at Xiaoyu. I'm ashamed to be associated with you. Brother Su Feng, don't be so impudent just because I'm polite to you. You're merely an outer disciple of the Qinghua mountain. It's not difficult for me to obtain this identity. Xiaoyu's eyes flickered with a cold light. His words were the truth. Given Xiaoyu's strength, he too had the chance to become an outer disciple of the Qinghua mountains. It was just that the ecliptic sect Xiaoyu was from was a power within the Xian King city, and it belonged to the Grand Shang Empire. The relationship between the Grand Shang Empire and the Qinghua mountain wasn't that friendly. In the Grand Shang Empire, the Qinghua mountain was clearly stronger. Not only that, other than these two major powers, there were many other powers they could choose from. Hence, many of the geniuses weren't in a hurry to make their choice. There's no need to fight anymore. Once we kill this man, we'll know whether or not he has obtained the inheritance of the utmost powerful being. A cold voice rang out. The person who spoke was none other than Yin Ting from the Yin clan. He already knew that Qin Wentian was the one who had humiliated Yin Qing before. He had already given the order to kill Qin Wentian, and it was an accident that Qin Wentian didn't die. But now that Qin Wentian appeared here, there was no other choice but to die. Ji Shui's silhouette flickered as she appeared beside Qin Wentian. She stared at the crowd. Brother Qin and I are allies. If someone dares to act against him, I naturally won't stand idly by the side. The long spear in Su Feng's hand spun slightly as he stared in the direction of Yin Ting. This slight movement of his indicated his attitude, causing everyone to be taken aback. I owe my life to him. A cold light flickered in Su Feng's eyes. Regardless of the reason why Qin Wentian lured the crimson-eyed demonic beast away, Qin Wentian had still saved his life. I won't help either side. Leng Tu stated his attitude. Wanting him to help Qin Wentian, he couldn't do it. But wanting him to kick Qin Wentian when he was down, he wasn't so despicable. He heard that Qin Wentian had offended Shang Yu, Jin Zhan and Yin Cheng. It would be hard for Qin Wentian to escape death. Yin Ting glanced at Xiaoyu when he heard Leng Tu's words. Xiaoyu's attention didn't seem to be entirely focused on Qin Wentian. This caused Yin Ting to have a rough guess in his heart. Bzzz. A raging wind gusted as the silence was broken. Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan soared up into the skies, aiming for the constellation fruits in the center of the celestial constellation tree. Humph! Shang-Chi coldly snorted. His silhouette flickered as he transformed into a beam of light, shooting towards the constellation fruits. Upon seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't be bothered with Qin Wentian any longer. They all dashed towards the celestial constellation tree, especially when they saw Xiaoyu and Leng Tu doing the same thing. They were even more certain that Qin Wentian didn't obtain anything. If not, how could these people be so calm as to spare him? Regardless of whether or not there were any treasures, they could temporarily put it aside. Right now, the most important thing was to fight for the constellation fruits. The constellation fruits on the celestial constellation tree were of different colors. The one on the lowest layer was an earthen yellow in color, similar to the great earth fruits. When the crowd neared it, they all halted as a terrifying pressure bore down on them, causing them to have no way to advance any further. Naturally, there were also those who directly moved towards the other layers of constellation fruits. However, they all met with different kinds of obstructions. For example, when they neared the blood-colored constellation fruits, they instantly felt their blood flowing uncontrollably, as though their bodies were about to explode. In fact, if they advanced any further, their bodies would bleed profusely. It was an extremely miserable sight. The celestial constellation tree was birthed from the bloodline of a legendary expert. The constellation fruits it bore contained a terrifying will of mandates. How could it be so easy to obtain them? This was also the reason why they didn't act earlier. If they could pluck the constellation fruits in an instant, these people wouldn't even need to face off against each other. They would have directly acted. Let's go. Su Feng glanced at Ji Shui. Wielding his long spear, he directly flew towards the celestial constellation tree. Ji Shui glanced at Qin Wentian. Brother Qin, it's best if you leave first. Don't participate in the contest for the constellation fruits. After speaking, she also soared up into the air. From her point of view, if Qin Wentian continued to stay here, it would be extremely dangerous. He might even be killed. The experts from the 9 transcendent powers all acted at the same time. For a period of time, the entire celestial constellation tree was filled with silhouettes. Qin Wentian's perception gushed out, sensing the will of mandates contained within the constellation fruits. The earthen yellow constellation fruits should contain the will of mandate of Great Earth. The blood-red constellation fruits should contain the will of mandate of blood. Other than that, there were also constellation fruits that contained demonic energy, spatial energy, and metal energy. The constellation fruits on the highest level were all crimson in color. When he released his perception, Qin Wentian's heart pounded wildly, just like when he faced the crimson-eyed demonic beast. The crimson-eyed demonic beast was born from the power of its bloodline. Hence, its body contained many extraordinary powers, it was just that it couldn't unleash them. The celestial constellation tree was like a mountain spiraling in the air. It was separated into 6 levels, and each level bore different fruits. However, the fruits on each level weren't so easy to pluck. At this moment, the expert who wanted to pluck the constellation fruits on the highest level actually fell headfirst from the tree. Evidently, he had already died. This caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Even plucking the fruits could result in death. Qin Wentian rubbed Little Rascal's head as he spoke in a low voice, "Help me pluck those fruits with the will of mandate of demons." Little Rascal's silhouette flickered as it soared through the air, directly dashing towards the constellation fruits containing the will of demons. The blood in Qin Wentian's body seethed as a fearsome demonic qi gushed forth from him. His entire body was enveloped by a fearsome blood qi as the aura he exuded surged up at an insane rate. Inclining his head, Qin Wentian stared at the celestial constellation tree as his blood qi churned wildly, breaking through the limits of his cultivation base. Qin Wentian's silhouette soared up into the air, directly landing on a tree branch on the first level as he walked towards one of the fruits. Yin Ting, Xiaoyu, Jin Yan, the 3 heavens chosen were all on this level. Other than them, there were also several powerful heavenly dipper sovereigns present. Qin Wentian walked up. Scram! Yin Ting blasted out with his palms, as a gigantic palm imprint of lightning imbued with a heavy pressure akin to a gigantic piece of land sweeping downwards, suppressing Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his palms as demonic qi churned wildly. His divine energy howled as he punched out, directly shattering the thunderous palm imprint. Stepping out, Qin Wentian used his tyrannical strength to forcibly endure the pressure from the constellation fruits. He was 1 step closer to the constellation fruits, and he only needed 5 more steps before he could obtain them. However, Yin Ting, Xiaoyu and Jin Yan were only 4 steps away, even closer than him. Beside Qin Wentian, there were a few other experts who were only 5 steps away. When they saw Qin Wentian walking over, their eyes all flickered with a cold light. Since you helped me once, scram. Xiaoyu's gaze swept over as he stared at Qin Wentian. 9 arms manifested from his body, resembling a monster. Jin Yan was a heavens chosen from the Golden Fire aristocrat clan. Before this, because Jin Zhan was defeated by Qin Wentian, he wanted to teach Qin Wentian a lesson. Yet now, Qin Wentian actually dared to come here to vie for the constellation fruits. His finger flickered with terrifying golden flames as he released his astral nova, causing the golden flames to transform into streams of light that flowed towards the tip of his finger. Jin Yan's finger pressed down in the direction of Qin Wentian as the golden flames shot towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as a gigantic palm imprint slammed towards the golden flames. However, he discovered that the golden flames seemed to have transformed into illusory flames. The palm imprint directly penetrated through them as though they didn't exist, continuing to pierce towards Qin Wentian. Puchi. The golden flames directly entered Qin Wentian's fist as a surge of destructive energy abruptly ravaged Qin Wentian's arm, incinerating everything within it. Boom! Waves of terrifying energy gushed into his arm, extinguishing the flames. These flames could transform into illusory objects that didn't exist, their attacks were formless and formless. If one wasn't careful, they would be struck by it. However, the destructive power of the flames was comparatively weaker and was easily erased by the energy within Qin Wentian's body. Despite that, his arm was still charred. Stepping forth, Qin Wentian felt the terrifying pressure bearing down on him. He was only 4 steps away from the earthen yellow constellation fruits. You don't know the immensity of death. Yin Ting coldly snorted. An even greater surge of energy gushed forth from his body as bolts of lightning blasted downwards, illuminating his entire body. He was like a god of thunder staring disdainfully at Qin Wentian, exuding an unparalleled sense of imposingness. Xiaoyu's countenance was ice cold as well. His 9 arms emitted roaring sounds at the same time, targeting Qin Wentian. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see it. His gaze was focused on the area in front of him as he coldly stated, "With me, Qin Wentian, there's no share of the constellation fruits here." After speaking, he disregarded everything, disregarding the threat of his opponent's attacks, disregarding everything, taking another step forward. Chapter 491. The constellation fruits that contained the mandate of Great Earth emanated a terrifying pressure, crushing down on every part of one's body. A formless barrier formed in the air, making it extremely difficult to approach. Qin Wentian was proficient in the mandate of force. His mandate of force was similar to the mandate of Great Earth, and right now, his bloodline power surged as his mandate of demons erupted forth. Hence, he was only 3 steps away from plucking the constellation fruits. However, the 3 experts around him were none other than the heaven chosen of the 3 transcendent powers. Jin Yan, an outstanding character from the Jin Yan aristocrat clan. Yin Ting, a heaven chosen of the Yin clan. Xiaoyu, a heaven chosen of the ecliptic sect. With these 3 present, how could they allow Qin Wentian to obtain the constellation fruits? Especially when Qin Wentian was so arrogant, "With me here, the constellation fruits won't belong to any of you." Even Su Feng and Ji Shui, who were in the air seizing the mandate of metal, lowered their heads and glanced at Qin Wentian below. Traces of worry could be seen in their eyes. Ji Shui initially wanted to tell Qin Wentian to leave so that he wouldn't be hunted down by them after he obtained the constellation fruits. However, not only did Qin Wentian refuse to leave, he even personally participated in the contest for the constellation fruits. With so many heaven-chosen present, how could he interfere? However, each level of the constellation fruits had a different level of pressure. Su Feng and Ji Shui were facing the pressure from the mandate of metal and had no time to worry about Qin Wentian. They could only pray for him. This fellow is too impulsive. He has underestimated the demon-level geniuses of Xian King City. Ji Shui silently mused, breaking out in cold sweat for Qin Wentian. When the three heaven-chosen saw that Qin Wentian was a step ahead, their eyes gleamed with a terrifying coldness. However, this step of Qin Wentian's wasn't for nothing. As his foot landed, a formless sword intent manifested in the air. However, how could this be sufficient to cause the three of them to waver? Above Yin Ting's head, a terrifying lightning python appeared, exuding demonic qi. This was none other than his astral nova. With a flick of his finger, numerous illusory lightning pythons lunged towards Qin Wentian. Each and every strand of lightning contained a terrifying destructive might. At the same time he blasted out this attack, he took another step forward. Similarly, there were only 3 more steps remaining. Qin Wentian didn't care about his opponent's attack. His arms transformed into the scales of a demonic dragon as he blasted out 9 palm imprints, intertwining with the lightning pythons. At the same time, Xia Yu's attack arrived. His 9 arms blasted out a series of fist shadows. Qin Wentian blasted out with his palms, causing the space around him to tremble and shatter. However, the fist shadows filled the sky, burying his opponent within. His will of mandates caused the power of the fist shadows to stack together, growing stronger and stronger, transforming into a gigantic fist wave, capable of destroying everything. Qin Wentian didn't retreat, the divine energy in his body erupted forth as he blasted out 9 palm imprints. Only then did the fist light dissipate. But at this moment, Jin Yan's attack arrived. A lotus of golden flames gushed over. This time around it was no longer illusory but corporeal, containing a fearsome fiery might within. Qin Wentian pointed out. Sword qi gushed forth, yet the lotus didn't explode. When it neared Qin Wentian, a thunderous boom rang out, wanting to destroy everything. Qin Wentian retreated a step as he fell downwards. The terrifying flames wreaked havoc in his surroundings, but Qin Wentian's sword might surged forth, allowing him to withstand it. And at this moment, Xia Yu and Jin Yan borrowed the force of the tremors from the impact to step out as well. The 3 of them advanced while Qin Wentian retreated. All 3 of them were a step ahead of Qin Wentian. Ignorant fool. Jin Yan coldly spoke. His eyes flickered with golden flames as he stared at Qin Wentian. After this matter is over, I will kill you. After speaking, the 3 of them frenziedly unleashed their own strength. Exchanging glances, they circulated the energy in their bodies and madly took a step upwards. A thunderous boom rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. All 3 of them unleashed their strongest auras, resisting the pressure. Right now, they were only 2 steps away from plucking the constellation fruits. The 3 of them exchanged glances, and from the eyes of each other, they could see an intense battle intent flickering within. There were only 2 more steps left. Whoever took the first step would be able to pluck the 2 constellation fruits containing the mandate of Great Earth. As for Qin Wentian, he was no longer in their considerations. Qin Wentian stared at the 3 of them. In that instant, he didn't advance but retreated instead. His body landed on the ground, but the sharpness in his eyes grew even more intense. Vast amounts of demonic qi erupted forth. His body was clad in a demonic armor, and with a stomp of his foot, a terrifying might shook the earth as he soared up into the skies once again. Stepping out, his sword intent whistled through the air. Stepping out 2 steps, his sword qi engulfed the area. Stepping out 3 steps, Qin Wentian's entire body was shrouded by a terrifying sword halo. Ta! Yin Ting, who was in the air, roared. His entire body was enveloped by the terrifying might of lightning, breaking apart everything. He took another step forward, and was now only a step away from the constellation fruits. Jin Yan's body was enveloped by the golden lotus light. The screen of light pierced through the air as he took another step forward. Xia Yu's 9 arms blasted out in all directions. Borrowing the power of the tremors, he similarly took another step forward. Their eyes were all fixed on the constellation fruits ahead. They were only a single step away. They all noticed that other than the pressure, the humming of swords could be heard echoing throughout the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian took his fourth step as his sword-type astral nova floated above his head. Numerous illusory sword shadows could be seen revolving around him as the sword swayed in the wind. As the fifth step landed, the entire space was enveloped by the dual might of sword chi and earth pressure. The gazes of the three in front froze. Yin Ting turned his head to glance at Qin Wentian, only to see that Qin Wentian was already one step behind him. Qin Wentian actually dared to return. How powerful was that sword chi? This constellation fruit is mine. Yin Ting took the final step forward. How can I allow you to enjoy it alone? Jin Yen similarly stepped out. Roar! Xiaoyu howled in madness, not fearing the pressure as he took another step forward. The three of them stepped forward and stretched their hands out, aiming for the same constellation fruit. This constellation fruit was located at the front, it would be easier for them to pluck it. But at this very moment, that lingering sword might suddenly bore down on them. Qin Wentian's sixth step landed, and the true killing might of the seven annihilation swordplay directly penetrated into their bodies. Their countenances drastically changed, as though millions upon millions of sword intents were piercing through their bodies. Puchi. The branch of the constellation fruit was directly severed. That terrifying pressure was broken apart by the sword chi as it slashed downwards. Two constellation fruits fell together with the branch. The countenances of the three drastically changed as they stretched their hands out to pluck the fruits. However, they only saw boundless sword light slashing through the branches of the constellation fruits, destroying everything in its path. You dare! Yin Ting roared as he retracted his palms. His body pressed downwards as the power of thunder and earth frenziedly converged into a terrifying bolt of lightning that lunged towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stretched his hands out and grabbed hold of the constellation fruit. He felt an incomparably heavy sensation, but with an intention of his will, he directly kept it. Pointing his finger upwards, a towering sword might swept over everything, blocking the incoming attack. His body directly fell downwards, instantly returning to the ground. Impudent! The three of them in the air all radiated a terrifying killing intent as they instantly appeared in the airspace above Qin Wentian, surrounding him. You are courting death. Yin Ting stomped downwards, his rage towering up into the skies. The earth beneath his feet directly cracked apart under the might of the lightning. Qin Wentian stared up in the air, only to see that many of the constellation fruits on the gigantic constellation tree had already been plucked. The golden-colored constellation fruits contained a powerful mandate of metal. One was seized by Jian Jingtian from the heaven-shocking sword sect, while the other was seized by Su Feng. As for the constellation fruits containing the mandate of demonic beasts, Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan seized one, while the other was snatched away by Little Rascal. As for the blood-colored constellation fruits containing the mandate of blood, all of them were seized by Shang-Chi. On the gigantic constellation tree, only the 4 constellation fruits on the top 2 layers remained unharvested. But at this moment, the various experts were already rushing over there. Only Yin Ting and the others didn't do so. They wanted to kill Qin Wentian, their killing intents frenziedly gushed forth. Qin Wentian dared to seize their constellation fruits, he had to die for sure. There was no chance of survival at all. Right now, they didn't even have a single constellation fruit in their hands. Bzzz. At this moment, the immortal binding rope appeared in the air, shooting towards Yin Ting and the other 2. Yin Ting and the others stiffened as they evaded. The immortal binding rope rapidly extended outwards as Ji Shui stood in the air. Su Feng's silhouette flickered as he appeared with a resplendent long spear in his hands. The 3 of you are geniuses from the various major powers, yet you actually joined forces to deal with a single person? What a joke! Ji Shui stared at the 3 of them as she mocked. She didn't expect that Qin Wentian would actually be able to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, snatching the constellation fruits away. Do the two of you want to interfere in this matter? Yin Ting coldly asked. In the air, a group of experts descended, sealing this entire space. These were none other than the experts from the Yin clan and Golden Fire Aristocrat clan. The so-called geniuses are merely so. The three of us actually couldn't even obtain a single constellation fruit. The long spear in Su Feng's hands spun as a terrifying sharpness gushed forth from it. Su Feng, if you want to interfere in this matter, even if you are an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain, I will still kill you all. Yin Ting coldly spoke. If you guys don't want the other constellation fruits, I will go get them for you. Qin Wentian's countenance was calm. Although these geniuses were strong, and their mandates had all reached the transformation boundary of the second level, given his methods, he wouldn't fear them at all. However, right now, he didn't have the time to waste on them. The constellation fruits were extremely important to Heavenly Dipper sovereigns like Wuxia. It could increase the speed of one's comprehension of their mandates, and could even aid in comprehending the true intent of their mandates. As for the remaining 4 constellation fruits, he wanted them all. Su Feng, Ji Shui, snatched the constellation fruits. Qin Wentian transmitted his voice over. After which, he stepped out and executed stellar transposition, vanishing from his original location. Yin Ting and the others turned their heads, only to see Qin Wentian rushing towards the peak of the celestial constellation fruit tree, where the experts were gathered. Has this fellow gone mad? Ji Shui's countenance stiffened when she saw Qin Wentian's actions. Those 4 constellation fruits were the hardest to obtain, and many had failed in their attempts. Not only that, other than them, the other experts were all gathered there. If they rushed over now, the chances of success would be too low, and it would be extremely dangerous. Yin Ting and the others had extremely ugly expressions on their faces when they saw Qin Wentian ignoring their encirclement and actually leaving so easily. Inclining their heads, they soared into the air, staring at Qin Wentian as though they were looking at a dead man. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.